I want
to welcome everybody to the gallery on Market Street. More ways on Market. This is a wonderful, wonderful evening, a wonderful occasion. This is something that we Moors have been asking for here in the city of Wilmington. And we Moors have been talking about this for many, many years. And here we are on 30th and Market at our lecture series, Know Thyself. This particular lecture series this evening is going to be on economics and unity. Economics and unity is very important. They're linked. We have to be economically linked together in order to be in unity. You know how they talk about spending dollars in your own community with your own kind? Well, this is a concept that has eluded us. And so we're here to talk about some of those principles of economics. And no one other than Taj Tarik Bey from out of New Jersey. He is a true constitutionalist. And if we don't understand that economics and constitution go hand in hand, those are fundamental basic principles of government. Without economics, a government can't exist. It is the commerce, it is the dealings, it is the way that a government functions. And we have to understand the keys to economics in order to get ourselves out of the muck and mire of Negro, black, and colored in that beggar state. Instead of looking for a job, we're delving down into the possibilities of creating a job. See, what we have done is we have put our destiny in other people's hands. And what we are to do now is take our destiny back into our own hands and seek it deliberately so that we can be those Moors that Noble Drew Ali, our great and noble prophet, talk about. Moors being men, upright, independent, and fearless. A Moor who is upright, independent, and fearless do not go looking for a job. That is not to criticize anyone who have a job. What it is to do is to give you some sense of ammunition where you can think for yourself instead of you giving your service out to a particular corporation or company. You can contract your service out. We want to get out of the employee state, and we want to take our service or our product and start contracting, because that is where our success lies in economics, is the right to contract. And Brother Taj Tarik will speak to that issue. And unity. Unity is so important because together we stand, divided we fall. Without unity of mind, unity of principle, we will fall. That is one of the key elements why Drew Ali came, is to get us back into that state of mind of our ancient forefathers. And that is a unity mind. The unity concept is so important because every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing. We are all one family bearing one free national name, which is Moorish. That is our divine and national title in this government. So we as a people must understand that unity is I and I. We are one family. We have to think like that. One brother and one sister. We are a nation of people in a government. We are a nation within this government. We're the only legit nation in this government. The other people don't belong here. We are true sovereigns and indigenous to this land here in North America. And my brother Taj, me and brother Taj go back, what, 20, 22, 23 years. And I seen brother Taj when he came to Camden's Temple in Camden, New Jersey. And when he came in with all that fire. Right from out there in the street, he came in, he was already thirsting. He wanted to know what was going on. And Brother Taj found out what was going on. And he is here to share the information that he has gathered over the years. I consider Brother Taj Tarik Bey a true constitutionalist, one who understands the principle of government, the principle of constitution, in order for himself to come out of the state of Negro, black, and colored and be a free Moorish American, a free man, one who knows who he is and who his forefathers were. He is truly a jewel to us. And we appreciate Brother Taj, and we thank Brother Taj for coming. And I am going to, did I say who I am? I'm Abdul Rahim Mill. I didn't even announce who I was. But it's all about Brother Taj this evening. And I want everybody to get something from Taj. I want you to pay very close attention to Brother Taj, because Brother Taj is going to share some things with you to help to clear up some concepts, if you will, about what is actually occurring in North America today, because we deal with the law, and the law is what's important, and ignorance of it is no excuse. Without any further ado, my brother, my friend, soldier in combat, from Taj Tarik
I'm going to hit on economics, unity. If anybody has any notebooks, take notes. We'll give honor to all the mothers in the house. Thank you for bringing us here. And the son is speaking tonight. Ask your permission. We'll give you honor. Without you, we couldn't be here and wouldn't be here. Remember, a lot of things that the sons do, we do simply because the mother's thinking in the background and directing us. But she has to be correct in order for us to be correct. So it's very important for us not to take on the false culture of suppressing the woman that we got from religions. And all the religions have been contaminated. You know that, right? So you must stop violating nature and violating the women, either mentally, spiritually, economically. Because when you violate her, you violate yourself. And that's the key to economics. Economics exists because we exist. It doesn't exist unto itself. And so we must never take the attitude or the thought that economics exists on its own. It does not. Keep that in mind. Where's the brother at? Check this because it's not working. Now, it's two things I'm going to do. I'm going to address unity and constitutional principles, but I also want, prior to a break, a few questions because I want to see where your minds are so I can go there, because it's better to feel where the people are and work off that than to prepare something and just bring you something because it might be interesting, because that doesn't really work. We need to work with the spirit of what needs to be fixed. Now, first of all, unity is something that people always throw about with us, right? They always saying, you know, we need unity, unity, unity. It must be understood when the word unity is presented to you, what it actually means is nationhood. It's usually, people will say, well, you know, we need to get together and do stuff together. We need to get together, do some economic things. We need to get together spiritually, economically, politically, and that's it. Well, guess what? That's not true. We've always been together. We party together, we go to picnics together, barbecues, jam, whatever. We've always been together. What we have not had is national principles that bind us as one on the political forum, no matter where we are, on whatever part of the land, with a common law. That's the principle of unity. It's called anciently, not modernly, anciently, Constitution. You must understand that Constitution did not begin with the misconcepts that a lot of Asiatics have that Europeans brought in constitutional principles. Constitutional principles are ancient as government and civilization is. Organized civilized government is based in constitutional principles, and it is called positive law. Positive law is called jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is founded in nature's God and nature's law, that which is founded by the Creator in nature, all universal law, or Allah. And for those who may be confused, Allah is a feminine word and a feminine name, so don't get confused with this masculine and feminine game that they've been playing with you in religion, because it deals with divine law, universally. And so one of the things that I recognize that has been one of the great weaknesses amongst us, and why most vampires have been able to suck off the energies of the Asiatics on this planet, not just particularly here, but on this planet, is because we have been smoked by religion, our concepts of what religion is and what religion is not. Religion, originally, as founded by the ancient Moabites, were teaching systems of your relationship to nature, your building blocks, the way you're made, how you operate in nature, how nature operates with you, your connections with everything else in nature, and that is called divine law. It's not spooky, it's not conjecture, it's not belief. These are fundamental functional facts. However, wicked Khalis and thieves use these systems to create secret principles for themselves to rule the masses, if you would understand. They start injecting agendas that have nothing to do with divine law, creating and making up versions of gods and then selling them to the people, then dividing the people, then sucking off of them, then using the devil as a scapegoat, and then ruling the world. That's the real deal. So when most people look at, looking at the European and looking at different armies and saying, oh wow, all these things they're doing to the world, believe me, it's religionists that did it. One of the biggest problems with us trying to get out of this thing is that the concept of our salvation, we run to the very people that actually are the vampires. For real. And one of the hardest things to do is tell people that truth and have them accept it because they want to beat you up. Because most of us are biased by whatever denominations or religions we belong to. I'm Muslim. But I will never deny that the wicked caliphs created divisions in Islam when the Quran said there shall be no secularism in Islam. And you got all kinds of sects just like in all the other denominations. So, let's not get self-righteous. And the other deal is, we must remember that both Muslims and Christians maintain slaves or forced servitude. So don't get self-righteous. The weakness that we have is that we don't know the real history and our connection here. Because the Crusaders buried a lot of that history, and therefore much that is connected to us, or that is our absolute birthright, we reject because we think it belongs to him. The old deal of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is part of the vampirism, because actually we're throwing out the power or the political power to our birthright by denying something because we assume that he's the founder of it, which includes religion, if you understand. Now, I want to hit on certain things because it's important for you to understand certain things and not to assume otherwise. Certain things I'll say that technically, organizationally, people don't say or don't want to say because it destroys institutions, but I'm not gaming like that. I'm for freeing my babies. I don't want my babies to suffer as I've suffered. I'll sacrifice me to make sure they got a chance. So I'm not selling out. So that ain't it. But I want to say this: Masonry, Skull and Bones, Jesuits, etc., Knights of Columbus, Ku Klux Klan, the whole crew. Why they all wear your fez is because they're all using the ancient Moorish principles of government to rule you with. And when you start rejecting them just out of hand without examination, thinking that those clubs belong to them and has nothing to do with you, you made your first mistake. Because that's your real history buried. It ain't black history. Your history is in them lodges. Your history is in governments around this planet. And so that's a diversion. And see, so we get into this thing, that's secret societies and, that's his thing. No, that's coded because Moors taught the Europeans Masonry. Masonry is just a modern system of structured government based on the ancient mystery schools of the ancient Moabites to bring them into government. We taught them governmental principles, civilization principles. But in order to rule you, they must not allow you to know that that's what it is. Do you understand? That's the nature of the secrecy. Not that it's a secret, because it's really not so much a secret as you think it is. They even hide it in yoga, in your advanced yoga lessons. If any one of you want to begin to free yourself from a suppressed mind of what you think religion is and what you think it is not, and what you think spirituality is and is not, go, breathe, meditate, take ablution, pray, and go get yourself an advanced yoga book and study it from front to back and back to front. Free yourself. Now those are keys. And I'm throwing it out there because you need to know that. Now the other deal is, you must understand that the Constitution that evolved for the United States, Central North America, and this is not the only United States. So when you say United States, don't let somebody play you. We're not just talking about the different jurisdictions of the United States within this particular territory. We're talking about the fact that there's more than one United States political forums in North, Central, and South America. So you got the United States of Mexico, the United States of Brazil, the United States of El Salvador. So these are all United States of America. So the United States of America in Central North America, where you assume is a national name, you must understand that it is not. It is a political confederation phrase absent of the national name. This is the United States of Morocco. That's the great Masonic secret. And America is Al-Maracan, or Al-Morocanos. We the people that is stated in the preamble for the Constitution of the United States is Society Al Republica Al-Morocanos. That is we the people set this Constitution for the United States of America, which is the unity or the union between a few select European sons and the Moors whose government was beginning to fall. You understand? It was a compromise. It wasn't like the Moors, you know, got some old good idea and, you know, we think we'll be moral and good and then teach the Europeans government and then make this thing nice and peaceful for our posterity. No, the Moorish government was falling apart because of divisions, economic subversion, political subversion, etc. And the fate was charted. And we recognized that if we didn't do something, just, you know how you say, lose it all? All right, so Chief Justice Ben Bey, that you learn in history books, Ben Banneker, was assigned the job to teach them masonry, or orders of government. This is the role, the real role of Ben Bey in what they call modern U.S. history, and why you see Washington, D.C. is laid out Masonically, but you can only see it from the air. That's an aside, but that's something for you to research on your own. You understand? So that you must understand that relationship. Now, when Noble Ali present to the Moors, come and link yourselves back with the families of nations, that is the message to you, that you must learn principles of law, national and international. Because you, in order to link yourselves back with the families of nations or to get in control of your economics, you must have political power. Because it's the political power that actually controls the economics. Now, you must also understand that most of you have never handled money. There's a few, I'm an old head, you know, and there might be a few others here that may be older that's handled silver and gold. You understand? But not too many. Most of you young brothers and sisters have never handled money. I think the last time they had a silver coin was 64 or something like that, and up until about 68 they sent agents out as individual or as private entrepreneurs, and they were giving you so many Federal Reserve notes for whatever silver coins you had, the 50 cents and the silver dollars and stuff like that. But they were actually government agents who were really trying to get the rest of the money, because that was the money. Now, let's look at this. I want to show you an example because I want you to think about this, and I also want you to practice this when you go out and you start doing your dealings. Keep this in mind, please. And I know a lot of you Moors already are aware of these things, but I want to point this out because this is some principles that we need to carry into practice, even those of us who are dealing with business, in business, because without economic security, you have nothing. First of all, you must understand that you don't have any money because you haven't been allowed to have money. So don't start saying you got money. You must begin to change your language. You understand? Call it finance. You hear me? When you're paying bills, you're not paying bills. I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. When you think you're paying bills, you're not paying bills. You understand? It's a transfer and is given as a lien, a transferred lien that is basically discharged. But the lien is maintained on you in your name for credits, because credit is nothing upon nothing upon nothing. Credit is the system that the Albion sons set up after they overthrew the Moorish government to maintain the forced servitude. And understand, when you use the word slavery, also understand that Slovakian, Czechoslovakian, etc. That's when the Red Russians went into Czechoslovakia and the Slovakians, and they forced servitude on them. And so slave actually means Slovakian. It does not mean you. So when you also say that you're a slave, or if you're arguing issues of reparations and stuff like that, and you say slave, you already took yourself out the jurisdiction, and it ain't going to work. Because they know that you're not Slovakians, you're Moors. But it appears, but they put the connotative on it as if it is a noun describing the condition of forced servitude. But that's connotative, but it's actually a nationality. Do you understand? See, these are tricks. So you must change your language. So the unity that is necessary for you to begin fixing this thing is called nationalization. Are we aware of that? Politically. We're not talking about beliefs, how you feel, your emotions, where you at, they ain't happening. We're talking about actual, factual, law, universal. You cannot become who your mothers and fathers were. You can only declare it. Do you understand? So you must understand that you cannot become Moor. You can't become Moorish. You always were, always will be, whether you claim it or whether you don't. One of the problems is that many people who've had this information keep presenting it from a perspective of a belief, and people don't know it has all to do with their pedigree, their bloodline, their birthright, their political rights on this planet, having nothing to do whether they believe in a God or not. Therefore, their concepts on how to look at this thing is totally wrong. It does not mean that you're moral or immoral. It means that you must understand what this is being said to you. When Noble Ali came here and declared that you are a nation, he was dealing with law, and he was dealing with heads of government. Do you understand? He was the first representative in modern times to represent the ancient Moabites, the descendants of the ancient Moabites, in their proper person, which was necessary to make it stand at law before the nations of the earth. Outside of that, if it's a Negro, black, and colored argument, it's just a movement. It's just a complaint. It's a program. Because there's no such people that live on the planet, therefore there's no laws to govern them except a program that whoever has jurisdiction over that chattel choose to present. I.e., that's where the 14th and 15th Amendment came in. That's why Noble Ali said that the 14th and 15th Amendment would not be necessary for the salvation of my people and the citizens. Now remember when he said that, that was at a time when they were still lynching our people in the street, but you must understand what he was really saying. What he's really telling you is that it was never law. It was never really ratified. It was fraudulently done. It is not part of the Constitution. What the slaveholders did was that they transferred by stock their rights by primogeniture to all chattel, meaning anyone branded Negro, black, and colored, automatically not being a part of the human family, because these were coined by Dutch masters and slave sociologists, specifically in 1779, although the process began before that in the early 30s. In the early 30s, in the 1730s, in that area, when they started dealing with the sorcery, word sorcery, symboliography, deliberately. The confirmation of it was about 1779, but they confirmed it politically about 1774 in 6th and Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay. That's the other part of what that Independence Hall has to do with your history that they won't tell you. And those buildings were already here. They're not his buildings, they're yours. That's the other deal you must understand. You see, so there's a lot of things that are assumed or have been assumed that need to be changed in your minds, so that you can begin to get economic security. And they know that you can never obtain economic security because two governments cannot operate in the same jurisdiction at one time, except by treaty. Now, if you're outside of the constitutional fold of government, you have no right to operate except whatever program they might make for you to allow you to operate, meaning privilege. That includes voting or anything else. Now, and so you already know, most of you already know, that voting in Smith, Jones, and Johnson is a privilege, and that it has no power of plebiscite unless you're in your proper person. Because you have no standing at law unless you're in your proper person. These are just fundamental things that must be understood. So I'm saying that to relay to everyone in the room, most of you who know, and there's some who may not know, the importance why the nationalization process takes place, why that is foremost in these activities, why it's presented to you, what role it plays in the political system. It has nothing to do with how you feel, what you believe. It changes your political status in reality that can be recognized in any court on the planet for you to be in a position of judicio standi as opposed to no judicio standi. All right? Are we clear on that? Now, to assure that you could not have any money to buy yourself out of servitude, the plot was set forth to steal all the money and send it to Europe. All right? Now, understand that no debt, this is law, no debt can be satisfied without gold or silver coin. Are we clear?
All right.
When you think that you're paying a bill, they accept that artifice. They dissolve it, or what you call discharge it, in their books. But the lien is placed against you in your name. This is how they really misuse the Social Security number, the driver's license, the birth certificate, and the marriage license. And of course, you all know that the marriage license comes under Article 39 of police powers. It has nothing to do with divine anything. That's the system of controlling the womb without you getting offended. You understand? In other words, the state plays the pimp. Do you understand? That way they control the issue under wardship, and you're not fighting it because you think that slavery is over. But you just signed a contract. Now, of course, you already know how to qualify that or how to preserve your rights. Now, we were discussing on the way down some of the issues of people mixing the argument of the UCC's Uniform Commercial Codes and the argument of constitutional right and principle. And I would always tell the Moors, do not mix them in the sense that taking the UCCs as the foremost law and running from the Constitution, because they're not bound to the UCCs. Though they've operated on them. All the world operates on them. They came from Moors. They're ancient principles. They're not modern. Do you understand? But they're dealing with commercial trade activity, with things. What they did with Negro, blacks, and coloreds, which is artificial artifices, they created that in order to inject it into the commerce realm. So the transference of the people across state lines, this is back to even the principle with the Dred Scott case, 1854, with the argument with the Dred Scott case, and people be calling it prejudice and everything, and then they go into the argument of the Missouri Compromise and the 3630 parallel and all that crap. The real deal, what you should pay attention to, is the docket sheet where it says plaintiff in error. And what it really means is that he ain't Dred Scott. So he coming to the court as an Englishman, arguing the issue of freedom, not only that, having Europeans represent him, who come actually in his stead as white men when he don't know that he's the white man. And that white man is a political status. It's not a complexion. And his forefathers, the Moors, are white men. And they're Europeans. They took on the title of white man with the Ku Klux Klan and the Whiggamore Party in 1854. And our people keep thinking it's a complexion, and actually it's a political status. It means the supreme ruler of the land.
That's right. White man.
Therefore, he's sovereign. And then you further read by using his name and transacting business in it. And so he uses that against you. What they do, say for instance, like you can take most Asiatics, like take a little baby here. So we got this baby here. Now that's our son. And he has to grow up into this thing. Now he's going to grow up now, as soon as he's about 5, 4. You're almost 5, right? 4? All right, now he's 4. Now, as soon as he grows up just a little bit more, and he gets into maybe 3rd grade, something like that, he's going to already be aware that Smith, Jones, and Johnson is not his name that was passed down from slave families. Okay. That means we're conscious. What we know what to do with it or not do with it is not what I'm talking about. They're using that as saying that we agree because we know better. And we don't make an effort to make a change or correct. So therefore, it bounds us in law as a fraud, because remember, fraud has no statute of limitation all over the planet. That means if somebody commits a fraud against you today, you can wait till you, let me see, 99, 199, if we can make it. And you can sue them then. And it'll still stand at law. All you need is the evidence. Do you understand? Now, so all these Asiatics, no, they're not Smith, Jones, Johnson, Freddie, and whatever. Don't we?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yes.
The deal is we don't know what it means at law, and no one's told us that. That's the real problem. It's not so much how we feel about it, is that it changes your political status in government. It changes your political status whenever you transact business. It changes your political status. It doesn't change it because it's already set, because you've been transacting business in it. Your political status is set when you buy or sell with that mark or that number of that name, because it don't belong to you. And the first civilization rule that you're violating and nobody's told you is that you are dishonoring your mothers and your fathers, and your days on the earth will be cut off. Ain't no religious rule, that's a civilization rule. And so whatever name that you transact business in, that's who it belongs to.
That's right.
So he don't have to sue you, do he? How do they do it? They do it by stocks and bonds maintained and controlled by the state corporations. The state corporations therefore must transfer it back to them, to the subordinate agencies, etc. Say, for instance, like if it's an insurance company, this is how it's done. So you say you Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, we know that's her stage name, with all due respect to sisters, because sisters on. But as an example, and you've been buying and selling that name, right? So automatically, the pedigree names of the European sons, etc., are already come under the jurisdictions of the Federalists and the Whigamores or the Whigs Party. And that's why they will never call themselves European. They will always say they're white people or Caucasians, because they know that you don't recognize what they just said to you, because you don't know language. When I say you, I'm talking to us plurally. So we're assuming that it means complexion when they just told you they're the supreme of the land, when you are, and you're under the concept that you came from someplace else, cut yourself off it. He has jurisdiction over you because you're using his name, and all he does is file liens against you through the corporate state, and then pass it down through the family. So the insurance company, so you got an Audi out there, right? So your Audi costs you $3,500, $2,600 to insure a year.
Easy.
Now, the European live across the street from you, working the same job, he may be making less money. He got a Mercedes, and he got a boat, and Susie got a car going to college with, and they got a bicycle, and their insurance is $2,600. That's how they do it, and it's not visible, is it? You move in the community. Say you get a mortgage for a house, right? There's already points against you. There's already points for them, and it's transferred on paperwork. So it's nothing personal. They walking down the street, they're treating you nice. They're not necessarily mean to you. It's set up in the structure. So you can't really accuse anyone to their face. That's why a European can live in the same community with you, have a lesser job, live in a better house, and have 2 and 3 cars, and you can't understand how it's done. And they may be busting their keisters just like you, but they're living on a level that you just can't, and you can wonder what's happening. That's how it's done. It's because of the liens within the state on the birth certificate. Now the deal is that that the state is claiming under wardship that they own all the wombs. So that means any issuance of the womb automatically belongs to the state, and they already put a lien on it of roughly, I think about 10 years ago it was $16,500, so now it must be about 20 some odd thousand immediately when the child is born. So that means it puts against the mother and goes against the family. You understand? So automatically anything you buy or sell, you can never own anyway. And you must, in other words, all right, you got the sweatsuit, right? Do you go pay tax on that sweatsuit? Why not?
Because the government doesn't.
You got them silver earrings on. You go pay taxes on them? Why? Basically because you own them, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, if you bought that car out there, what you paying tax on that for if you own that? Because you don't own it. If you bought a house, or a house was passed down to you from your mother and it's been paid for, why do you pay taxes on it and they can tax you out of it if you owned it?
Yes.
Because you don't own it.
That's right.
All right.
They just put the rental fee, give it another name.
Only tax.
Do you understand? Under feudal law, under the corporate state and its subordinate agencies that are actually governing you through that birth certificate, that marriage certificate, etc., and the fact that you call yourself Frida Jones, bushwhacker or somebody. And we do that, but we never think about that. That's how it's happening. Now, what is it that Drew Ali did that blew this thing out the water? First of all, he presented the argument on behalf of these people, not talking about slavery or Negro, black, and colored from that perspective, but declared them by the record of their true history, and that's also documented in this government. As direct descendants of the ancient Moabites, part and parcel of this said government, founders of civilization, and he stood and represented us before the heads of government and went to the president and said, release the flag. Because he's obligated. He's a Mason. So he came in propria persona sui juris, in his own proper person, to represent a body of people that are not in their own proper person, don't even know what's up. They think he's talking some kind of religious game because he's talking Islam too. But it's veiled. He had to come through the back door to bring you what you need. He's raising the nation. But he also knew there would be opposition, which is logical. Why? Because the Crusades. Remember this. When you're dealing with Europeans, and do not get angry at Europeans because of the things that they do. Understand what they're doing. Do you understand? All right. When they're dealing with you, they think dimensional. We think static. We think usually present time, with a little bit of flavor from certain abuses in our history, but generally static. They always think Roman Empire, the Crusades, the conquering of the Almoravids, the Almoravides, the conquering of the Moroccan Empire in the Western Hemisphere, the turning over of the government, and those things necessary to maintain their political power here. Do you understand? So whenever they're dealing with you, they think on those dimensions. So they're not thinking static like we do. You know, oh, I think he's racist. It's really not fair. And that's how we think. It's how they want you to think. There's only one race on this planet. It's the human race.
That's right.
And the human race is divided up into extended families that are called nationalities, that have constitutions and free national standards that represent them before the families of nations on this planet. And so if you say that you have an identity, first thing I ask you is, where's your constitution? You see? That's all over the world. But there's a whole culture where we need to gravitate to that has not been part of our culture, that has actually held us out of the economic power. Because in order for you to control your economics, to maintain control over your economics, or to have the right to possess, you must be in your proper person. Specifically, the Asiatics here who have been branded Negro, blacks, and coloreds, not being in their proper person, are accused by the civilized world of what is known as acquiescence and or abandonment. And on these two law principles, most operations against us are made. So if you understand that when you're dealing with issues, say, tickets for a car, sentencing in any issue before court without due process, etc., the real deal that they're operating on is not what you see immediately, but on the predisposition of a jurisdiction based on a claim that you've abandoned your birthright, and therefore it is absent. And since you're using Smith or Jones or Johnson, that the Bar Association of England has a right to demand representation of you, you have no right to represent yourself, i.e. you need a lawyer. Do you understand? Now, lawyers being an officer of the court, conflict of interest, member of the Bar Association of England with a branch here in the Americas, prosecutor being a member of the Bar Association of England with a branch in America, ABA, and an officer of the court. The so-called judge or the public pretender that they put on you, right, is an officer of the court, right, and a potential, if not, a member of the Bar Association of England with a branch here in America. Does that sound like conflict of interest to anyone? Their first obligation is to the court, not to you.
That's right.
So therefore, you still, at that point, have no judicial stand-eye. Am I correct? Now, how many of you ever thought to ask that judge what's his nationality? Of course you did. You know better. I mean, do you recognize what I just said to you? Anyone, feel free to comment if you don't really. Yes, baby brother. All right, smile's good enough. You're the man. Point is that as soon as you ask him his nationality, what you all must recognize why I said that to you is because the nationality, if declared for the record, would indicate whether or not he has jurisdiction before you even arguing about jurisdiction, which they like to try to deny. And remember, if you present an argument of jurisdiction in a motion, whether it's right or wrong, he has the option of dismissing it. So you never present it as a motion, affidavit of fact, for the record. All right? We're talking about, remember, all this is economics. All of this is economics, because these are ways and systems on how the state's corporations, which are plantations, incorporated, how they've been robbing you. And so you must learn some methods to counter that to preserve your economics lawfully and rightfully. All right? Now, if you're transacting business in Smith, Jones, and Johnson, you know that the court automatically has jurisdiction. You're aware of that, right? Everyone aware of that?
No.
Well, listen. When you enter into a courtroom, any courtroom, if you're not, now, you know what impropria persona sui juris is? Right. Impropria persona sui juris is in Moorish Latin, which is law, ancient and modern.
Can you write that?
Yes. Most of you know, but this is for, because I want you to understand this. Excuse me. Now, impropria persona sui juris means listen to this carefully, and it sounds redundant, but this is really what it means. But you must understand the sound of redundancy is purposeful. In one's own proper person. Can I say that after me because it's very important for you to understand. In one's own proper person. Now, you understand what I said? This is what happens. When you go into a courtroom, Smith, Jones, Johnson, Freddie, and all that kind of crap, which we've been doing for generations, you are not in your own proper person. So the court automatically has jurisdiction no matter what you say. And the judge and the lawyer already has leave concerning you. That's why they tell you to shut up. It's not the substance of what you're talking about. It's because you don't have any standing in law. It's called no judicio standi. All right? Now, this is back to me emphasizing to you the importance of nationalization, what it really means, which a lot of people haven't told you. Because you must change that status before we can talk about a lot of these other things about preserving your economics. But that's also the political forum of your unity that the Europeans destroyed before they put you in servitude. In other words, you must turn your hearts back to your mothers and fathers. But not only your hearts back, you must be in knowledge with them. You must understand the status that actually existed, not from how you feel about it, but from a base of knowledge. Are we clear? All right. So when you're not in your own proper, and it's not circumstantial with us, it is the standard with us.
Okay.
So what happens is, because they cannot deport us, of course they know it, we don't.
Yeah, right.
They're caught up in a quandary because they got to keep building jails. Because we're really indigenous. And we ain't Indians either. And this ain't India. But I'm saying to you, that's why they have to keep building jails, because they can't deport us. But what they've done is transferred some of your natural birth rights into privileges under a jurisdiction of commerce, and actually transferred your rights into privileges under the jurisdiction of the courts that actually have no right whatsoever to deal with these things because they're unalienable. They're not transferable. They're unalienable rights. However, they're able to seize them under the auspices of you using their name. And the deal is they're just not doing an immediate suit. It's laid away and used constantly. And so the individual families don't do it, the states do it for them. And then they share in the profits. Now, you understand stocks and bonds and why it never matches the actual gross national product? Because you're the stock.
There you go.
And that's for real. So we must not get offended. We must understand what's happening. Because the issue of what I'm telling to you is economics. Meaning that it's not what you think it is. Why do we have money or finance? For the most part, money or finance is used to supplement a transference of my energy to you or yours to me. And particularly whereas we don't have the situation where we can barter or share. I say, well, sister, you cook for me and I'll grow the food. Well, we don't work like that all the time because time factor. So you must deal with the energies that are in nature. And beings that civilization is found on the heavens and the earth, or the astrologic, the power of the sun, which is the central energy for the planets, is gold. The alchemy metal for the energy absorbed in the earth from the sun is gold. And so therefore, the fundamental principle of transference of energy in nature and in nature's God is gold. And for the governance of the womb of woman that brings all things to the planet, anything that's mammal, only birthmark we got is a navel. It ain't no strawberry, it ain't no mole, it's a navel. That's right. Common. And that's governed by the moon 13 times in the cycle of the year, running around the earth, while the earth runs around the sun on 13 cycles, the number 13. And the alchemical energy of the absorption of the energies of the gestation of the moon into the earth is silver.
All right.
Therefore, the moon
Gold, silver.
economy, the money is gold and silver. And no debt can be satisfied without gold or silver. That is the money. Everything else is an artifice or a check. Are we clear? Now, remember this. This is a political status for all this other stuff to count. You turning your hearts and your minds back to your mothers and fathers and reclaiming the names of your mothers and fathers takes you at first out of that status if you understood what you've done. If you don't understand what is done, they can still bring you into a false jurisdiction because you can't defend it.
All right.
So it's important for you to understand the function of it so that you can defend your nationality or your nationality card. And remember, a card don't make you. You make cards. Institutions don't make you. You make institutions. It's important for you to understand the information and the knowledge and not the houses that hold them. Are we clear? Therefore, your nationality is not for sale. And the function of it is not for sale. Are we clear? That is your birthright. So if someone has a document that you're using to function in these matters, we're not talking about information-wise, we're talking about function of the birthright, the nationality card. It can only be transferred at cost. If any charge of profit is made on it, it becomes a commercial act as a violation of constitutional law and therefore need not be recognized by any government on the planet. Are we clear? Are we clear?
No.
I'm going to make that very clear because these are important points.
Yeah.
All right? Now,
They charging you.
so now, let's look at some money. I ain't got no some coins in there. I wish I bought some. But anyone aware? Anyone in here handles gold and silver coins? All right. Now, look at what you got in your pocket. Pull out one of those Federal Reserves.
The Federal
Oh,
Reserve,
but I want you to look at it.
the fiat.
Now, first of all, this is for many of the Moors in here are already conscious, and so much of what I'm saying is redundant to them. However, with your good support of the conscious Moors, we know that we're here reaching out to brothers and sisters that may not be clear on certain things, because it is important for you to have a knowledge of these things so that you can get your economics and your house in order. Do you understand? Poverty is a political activity. It is not a force in nature. Nature does not support poverty. Where there's poverty is politically enacted. Mother does not produce anything she can't feed. Never has, never will. Do you understand? She will go through cycles of cleansing where you might see destruction, but she does not support poverty. She's got enough breast to feed every child that she brings here. So don't get confused when you see poverty around the world. Recognize if you see poverty, it's political, or they're violating divine law and reaping the karmic consequence. So recognize a lot of our karma, or a lot of our poverty that you see with us, is that we've earned it. We're getting paid, cashing checks. And Saturn's turn them wheels and send them back. We're selling out wolf tickets and Saturn's cashing them. So you understand. That's like an immune system lets nothing outside of this particular, just like your body. All right? Now, for those who do not know, you notice that there's two seals on the back of that dollar bill, right? Recognize that there are two seals? You recognize the word one, O-N-E in the middle. And it has two seals, and the first seal says the Great Seal. And the second seal starts with the conjunction of the United States. And so you recognize that that O implies and establishes a connection. So understand and know that this jurisdictional government has a dual national seal. The Great Seal is not used in public. Why? Because it belongs to you. Are we aware? Are you on? Are you with me? That's one of your great Masonic secrets. That's one of your great Jesuit secrets. That's one of your great Klan secrets. That's one of your great Whiggamore Party secrets. That's one of your great Skull and Bone secrets. That's one of your Federalist secrets. And that's one secret that they have no intention for you ever finding out. All right? So understand that you're part and parcel of this government. And if you don't act accordingly, you are voluntarily abandoning your part in the affairs of government, and therefore you're charged again with abandonment and under the jurisdiction of the corporate state. And so they're mixing the federal law with corporate law. Do you understand? Not because they can. They're mixing the jurisdictions because we're mixing the jurisdictions. Because the jurisdictions only exist because we are acting in accordance with the fraud. And they're saying that you are sanctioning it because you don't qualify yourself when you transact business, when you buy or sell in the mark or the number of his name. Do you understand? Now, recognize that civilization operates in contract, and so to a point, you must understand that you're going to be dealing in contracts. The deal is you must understand the nature of contracts, how to protect yourself in contracts, and your status in contracts, and understand that you're not going to be doing anything without dealing with contracts, whether they're oral, implied, or written. Are we clear? So let's not get into this idea that, you know, we ain't doing no contracts because you're doing them every day. All right? Even when you take a receipt, if you go to a store and you take a receipt that they gave you, that's a contract. All right? And what this receipt is an agreement that you agreed to transfer the debt, or that they agreed to accept this artifice, and the debt's not satisfied, and you are walking out with the concept that you just paid. No, it goes on the record books of credit. And it is not paid. I'm serious. That's how.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was, because how could it be paid if there's no lawful money?
Of course.
Right.
What occurs, they must keep it cyclical, and so that it rotates back to the Federal Reserve, and then the President Greenspan, who's the real president of the Union States of Society, and Bush is the figurehead.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Over the Federal Reserve Board.
Yes, that's the real president. You see, so they walk around, they're not threatened because you don't recognize that that's really the president. Do you understand? Not of the United States, because the president of the United States is silent. It's one of you. But you won't be yourself. You keep on wanting to be Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, which puts you under their jurisdiction, and they're how do you say, they're claiming that you got amnesia or abandoned, and they have a right in the corporate jurisdiction, you know, to work in your stead, because the proof to the world is that we keep saying that we Smith, Jones, and Johnson. And we transact business in there, therefore it seals it. That's a contract every time you signed it. It's held against you.
So what you saying, like when they say held the chief, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the United States, and then they have a big evil, but they don't have a pyramid.
The reason why is because we, the people of the United States, did ordain this Constitution for governance of the United States of America. There's two different entities.
Right.
Did someone contend or contest or object? I think one occurred, it happened a couple of years ago. Vicente Fox, the United States of America, Mexico stood up when they said the President of the United States, I think a couple of years ago in the United Nations said, and they corrected them, said, United States of America here, because there's more than one United States, because that implies that the United States, that he's the President of the Americas. Because you already know that America is the name of the continents. There's no nation called America.
That's right.
But it was also, before the split of the Iron Curtain, right? USSR was called United States of Russia.
Of course it is. You got the United States of England. You got two United States in North America, the United States of America, Mexico, and the United States of America, blank. The occupational jurisdiction. And so every time Bush stands up, he represents the corporate CEO for the United States, presiding as president for the bankers of Europe.
That's right.
You understand? Which Greenspan is the second man. So they're like this. And so the Congress is a front. They don't really control the money. The Federal Reserve controls the money. What you think is the money. Which of course you already know is not constitutional. But they're not the United States of America. The problem is we keep assuming they are. The United States of America is right here, but they won't talk. Because they don't know. And nobody's telling them. And then most of them, they get mad at the European and they reject the United States of America thinking it's his. Which is what the European wants him to do. And then he charges him with abandon and he claims it. That's where he's getting his power and jurisdiction. That's how he can go around the world doing things in our name. Creating enemies for us.
Todd.
Because we can't go nowhere because we're home. And he can't send us nowhere because we're home.
But he can give us away.
No, but he lied and got us thinking that we came from Africa, not knowing that we're in Africa. I'm showing you these things must be understood to understand economy. Never gonna solve anything. You know, and so the principle is, I'm emphasizing that because it's important to understand impactively the importance of nationalization, what it represents on a political forum without documents, absent of any documents, but solid with your knowledge of what it is. Any document anybody gives you, and you're going to walk in any court and walk right into the false jurisdiction anyway, you can't defend yourself.
Can you claim your sovereignty under a European status now?
See, you must
Some people
understand
don't want-
sovereignty.
Yeah, but some people don't want to. I know I do.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to let go of their European.
Let me
name
explain
because
to you.
They think it means something.
Let me explain to you the sovereignty. Now, the sovereignty comes out of the birthright. But the sovereignty also signifies that we also have our standing army here. So, while we're teaching the issues of sovereignty, don't claim your sovereignty, claim your birthright. Claim your status. Remember this, and everyone, and particularly sister, excuse me, sister,
Yes.
Queen, I apologize, what's your name?
Sheena.
Sister Sheena. Now, let's look, because we're just some issues with the question that you had earlier, because the brother was bringing up an important point about sovereignty. Now, when you make the argument of sovereignty, you understand that sovereignty comes out of birthright. But now, the issue of sovereignty deals with a political status, dealing with the act of us functioning already in our political status, meaning already organized or unified, having our government, having our wazirs in place, etc., etc. The sovereignty being executed by these ministers whom we will appoint by law. While the sovereignty in fact exists, it is not functional. That would be clipped. Therefore, your argument would be to hold the judge, etc., or anyone else to their obligations to the Constitution, which is the covenant by which we bound them, so that they would not abuse the clip sovereignty forwarded to them. Which is why I always argue with Moors, do not get caught up in the UCCs and try to use them to beat him up with. You should know about them, but don't use them in front of the Constitution. You hold that man to his obligations to that covenant, because that's what he has his oath on. Then you challenge his jurisdiction, because the real deal is that Moors are the only people here lawfully that have nationality cards. And so you must understand what that really means. That European, and European is a what? Continental locale, am I correct?
Yep.
So now when you go calling into issues of jurisdiction, which would imply or establish what is known as authority, you must also not bypass status. However, if you're willing to do that, he's willing to take it. But if you bring him back to the issue, because remember there's 3 issues in law, you know this, everyone knows law, knows this, right?
Jurisdiction.
What are the issues in law?
Status, jurisdiction,
Status, right?
jurisdiction. Adjudication.
So what occurs? Smith, Jones, and Johnson, etc., they immediately go to jurisdiction, venue, and adjudication without even telling you that. Status is totally not addressed, am I correct? Your status is assumed because the courts already have leave, because most of us come in there Smith, Jones, and Johnson. And many of them come in there with their bays and eel, don't know what they got, and don't challenge the jurisdiction. With them, when they start claiming the jurisdiction, start adjudicating and bringing that judge back to the status. And if you don't argue, that means you waived it or abandoned it. Do you get where I'm coming from? Now,
Now, every president from Washington on down was related, ties into the family Queen of England. And that's how they're trying to steal our sovereignty, bloodline.
Look at it more than one way. Yes, but that doesn't give them jurisdiction.
It doesn't give them jurisdiction, but what they're doing is they're faking with the drama.
No, they always were.
We're white, we're pure, right?
Yes.
So our people are unconscious, right? And we think because they're white, they're like God, and anything they
Well,
say
that's what it
goes.
means. But it's also spiritual. You gotta remember, most people think that religion is spiritual instruction. Civilized people on the planet know that spirituality is a knowledge of divine law, its function, and your ability to address it. That's spirituality. It's neither positive nor negative because the sun shines on the good as well as the evil. It is power there to use. Absent of a knowledge of it, you can become victim to vampires, which is what has happened to us. They've given us religion, lied to us, told us we were spiritual, and they've been practicing spirituality in the secret societies. You understand? Amongst the imams, the rabbinate, the reverends, etc., in their lodges, they're brothers then, you understand? Then they come out and talk about separation of church and state and separation of the religions, but those who really know the difference know there is no separation and that the truth is one. You understand? Religion is used to dope the masses down. I'm not talking about what religion was founded for. I'm talking about what it's used for now. You understand? You know, I know, the masses don't know that. They will defend it, which is defending their servitude, which is why this thing is so locked up. Because they keep associating religions with Prophet Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Isa, Jesus, Ali, all the prophets. And they had absolutely nothing to do with them. All the prophets were social reformers. And if anything, they were fighting organized religions. And if anything, it's organized religionists and the states plotted the death of the prophets. And then blamed the devil and started raising money to fight the devil, and it was organized religionists and the states that murdered the prophets. Prophet Muhammad come, they ran him out of Mecca. Now them same people trying to tell you what Islam is, now Jure Ali came and told you what Islam is. They didn't tell you anything then, don't let them tell you anything now. Islam is science. It is knowledge of civilization. There are fundamental principles that are universal in their nature, regardless of people's belief systems. And the belief systems are simply, you know how it is, like a teacher will, give children a chart on the back of the book, say 2 and 2 is 4, and 4 and 4 is 8, and the child gets all impressed. And then you give them a number, 100 and 100, and they start getting confused. You know that they don't know the formula. Because the numbers doesn't matter. It is only principles of truth that matter. And principles of truth are universal. When they stop being universal, look for the lie. We know that people have been geared by religious zealots and sorcerers to hate one another and say the prophets instructed them, and that they're middlemen for the prophets. So remember when they murdered Jesus, what was the major reason they murdered Jesus? Because Jesus, among all the prophets, was the main prophet whose major effort was to remove the middleman. That's why they hated him. Oh yeah.
Go ahead, teach, brother.
And he says, as I am, all men can be. What I've done, all men can do. And some of you will even do greater works than I have done. Don't get confused about this. Don't get caught up in me. Listen to my word. I didn't want the job. How come do the Father's will? What's your confusion? You see what I'm saying? So the people miss his message, get caught up in idolatry, and the Romans is ruling them and making them worship the same cross that they lynched them on.
Come on.
And these people say they love Jesus. But they're sincere, but they don't know that they're under a spell. So you don't condemn them. You must do certain things in truth to unravel the spell, so they don't feel attacked, to free them. Because only the truth is going to free them.
That's right.
They think that some preacher will come pray for them and free them. They don't know they're sorcerers. And if you tell them that, they can lynch you.
And would it lynch you because you be cutting off their so much finance? You be cutting off their finance.
Well, yes, but that's the whole deal. See, but you know that the average person does not recognize that what they are calling money is an instrument that is subordinate to man. And that any God that's subordinate to money is surely a subordinate to man and cannot have the power to save you because he's always broke. He needs you. You don't need him. And so you know when a person cannot use their reasoning mind to go beyond that they are enslaved, that they're in the dark.
That's a mental slave.
You know, but that's again how it's used. But what they do, they use the sorcery and they keep attaching the prophets' names to it. And the people never examine the works of the prophets. They only follow the people who say that God sent me. Oh, I bumped my head. Got a message for you. You know, and God told me, you know, that he loves you. Well,
All right.
good. Now what? Well, he really loves you. Oh, all right. But he don't love him because he don't belong to our church.
That's right.
Oh, all right. But don't question that now. All right. Got $5? All right. And it's been working. And everybody is shedding blood. They hate each other. They don't love. There's no love here. That's demonology. But it's practiced all across the board.
That's right.
So ain't none of us amongst us righteous. So you got Muslims over here. You understand? Misusing the culture of the creed. We ain't talking about science of Islam. There are Christians over here misusing the creed of Christendom. They don't even know what crystallization is. They don't know its degrees. They think it's that Jesus didn't have nothing to do with that. The degrees of knowledge. Jesus was Moabite, Canaanite blood.
Yes.
Hair like lamb's wool. Yes. Ruth the Moabite is his grandmother. We're Moors. Moabite is the ancient name for Moors. Moabites and Moors are the same people. That's your bloodline. We're from the house of David. That's us. But we worship Romans, don't we?
And Jews.
And claim it to be Jesus, don't we? That's a supreme violation of divine law. That's why we're cursed. We them Jews that sold them out. We don't know that we them Jews. You understand?
Some of us do.
Well, some of us do. I'm saying as a body of people, these Moors don't know that they are them Jews, and that has a lot to do with our present negative social state and why our history was buried. Brother with the coat of many colors. Yes.
Is that when they say that is let this be on let this curse be on let his blood be on our hands and
That's
on
why
our
they try to.
children's hands?
Yes, Pontius Pilate was saying to us, you're hypocrites, trying to say that because I'm in a position of rulership and I have the authority of edicts, that I am sentencing this innocent man. No, it is you. But you demand because I'm in control of the sovereignty or the jurisdiction that I issue it to get it off you. Well, it ain't off you.
That's what.
And when the Jewish leaders stepped up and said let his blood be on our hands and on our children's hands.
Yeah.
So we being the children.
Oh,
That's why
many generations.
many generations.
Now, you understand, like say in the book of Isaiah, book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah deals with a lot of the astrology of the circumstantial actions of us walking around the wheel.
Wheel in the middle wheel.
Yes, Ezekiel's wheel. That's your zodiac. Because we must go through all the houses of the mansion. He says, I hold my hand out all the day long to a hard-hearted and rebellious people who are not called by my name. when they repent from their sinful ways, I will hear from heaven and heal their land. He said nothing about no cloud.
He said nothing about no what?
He said nothing about no cloud. land, their land. In other words, the point of it is, most people don't know that the descendancies that are spoken of in the Heliotech, which they call the Bible, which is actually drawn off the astrology book of the opening of the mouth in the book of the dead. Do you understand? Which is an astrology book of the dynasties of the Moabites, Canaanites, Hittites, etc., which is us. And it is not like, you have a child and then your child have a child the way it's presented in the book. Not really. They're dynasties. They are compound thousands of years. They're not generations in the concept that we see them. Now, those who prepare the book know that it is not. But those who are presenting the book are told from the day when they get the book, remember this charge. These are all ecclesiastical doctors, doctors of ecclesiastics, Masons, Eastern Stars, Skull and Bones, those who rule, etc. That the Bible is this position, that the church did not come from the Bible came from the church. Never forget. Means that it's deliberately misrepresented. That's for those who teach from it. That's not for the masses. Now I'm telling you something, that's a charge that's actually given to them. And with some research, I'll say that you will find it out. But you cannot tell that to most people because they'll hate you for it. Because again, they keep associating religious orders with the prophets that had nothing to do with them. And they do not know that the Heliotech is an astrology book. Therefore, they do not recognize that the issue of the Crusaders was to put the culture of the ancient ones in check. Which is why the Pope will wear a fish head. It's called a mitre, which means the square of the compass in the square. And the fish head is, of course, Piscean age before the Aquarian age, meaning the age of believers. All right? And then they will wear the cross, which is North Gate, South Gate, East Gate, West Gate. Of course, you know there's no East Gate and West Gate because there's only the polar north and the polar south. So you've got anode and cathode, the natural principle of electricity and balance. And so you got anode, which is Allah, cathode, which is the Catholic Church. And the overthrowing of the Moabite Empire in the Western Hemisphere by the Franciscan Brotherhood, which is the Jesuits, etc., from which is derived your secret societies.
What did that attribute anode?
It's a principle of electricity.
That word, you said anode.
Anode, these are polar principles of the axis upon which the earth fluctuates around the sun. And of course, on the celestial plane, you're dealing with fluctuations of roughly 2 and 3, 23 degrees, which would be your equator or your celestial equator, which you get in religious orders, the Celestine Temple, that type thing. And then, that actually means the master seal. And so when you see the cross, when it's shown in, say, earlier periods here, they will have the zodiac circle around it, which will give you 4 gates, which will show you that they're giving you the mansion. And in my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not true, I would have told you so. Surely I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. But you must understand that is the heart of your mother, father. But there's a science to it. And so from where your mother brings you in, that is the gate. All right, so it's like you see in the book of Genesis, which means to gestate, the birth, generate. When the angels were administering to Mary and her cousin Elizabeth, John and Yeshua were to be born. And of course, there's no J in Hebrew or Aramaic. And you also know that Jesus really means justice, but is not the name of the prophet, for it was not to be used by those who were slaves to sin. His name is Yahushua. know, so when they had the Nicene Council, 325 years after they assassinated him, they voted to alter the records. And they also didn't want to deal with Yahushua II because Yahushua, who was also dealing with Musa, who was a subordinate prophet, what they call a minor prophet, and astrologer. They didn't want to confuse the history because they wanted to create a figure beyond what Yeshua himself actually presented, because he was a social reformer, and they wanted to make an image for Christendom. So they robbed him and used his image and used him as the sanctioning power, when actually they were the ones he was fighting. So the very ones that he was fighting is the ones that sanction or actually perpetrate religion in his name today, in order to put the world in the dark. And you'll see, and the popes of Rome, and you'll see it's in their records. They established that order to put astrology in check, therefore to block out civilized order. In other words, not to adopt civilization, but to conquer civilization. You know what I'm saying? In hoc signo vinces.
That was Constantine.
In this sign shall we conquer.
That was Constantine?
Yes, and of course you know Muhammad took Constantine's head,
Right.
and Dwali came from his tail. So Dwali is Muhammad III. That's another secret. You know, it's not a secret, but that's, you must understand astrologically what this really means. And the reason why Muhammad cannot be painted, this is another fraud, how things get messed up in religious dogma. One of the issues on why Muhammad cannot be painted, and why there was such arguments in Islam, why, you know, you can't paint Prophet Muhammad, because actually Prophet Muhammad is not the person. Muhammad's the zodiac. Can't be painted. But it's also the highest law. But it would free the world. You know, and so the deal is, you know, it's like Jesus said, you know ye the truth, and the truth will set you free. If the truth was known, we wouldn't be happy sitting here having this discussion right now.
That's why Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, come off the cross and form under one crescent. The cross represents the reign, the terrestrial.
No, let me explain to you. The cross is the master seal.
Right.
And this is why it's also important to tell the truth, because many people, when they get caught up in the different religious orders, they start rejecting other signs and symbols, thinking that it's evil. The cross is ours, not how it's been presented. Let me show you the sorcery in this so that you understand. This is how the sorcery is done. Because I want you to really, this is very important to understand this.
Please.
This is the masters. This is the ancient and modern spiritual symbol or glyph of the Son of God and the Son. So it's both Son and Son. S-U-N and S-O-N. Now, in the 39th book of the Heliotext, 3 and 9 is 12. That's your 12 disciples, or your 12 signs of your zodiac in the Son of God. You will see 4 chapters. And the 4 chapters is your 4 gates.
Four chapters where?
So the book of Malachi.
Yes.
Book of Malachi.
And that's your last book of the Old Testament, or the Torah. All right? In the 3rd, it will say, the Son of Righteousness arises with healing in his wings. And most people know that it's talking about Yeshua, or Jesus. But what most people don't recognize, that it's spelled S-U-N. But all masters recognize it immediately. Those who belong to secret societies and those who are in government. Do you understand?
I missed that.
These are do you have a heliotext here? Can I see it? Turn the book of Malachi. Say for instance, if I was taking a payoff, and I want to start a church, you know the state would give me money tomorrow. Stop doing what I'm doing. Give me You understand what I'm saying? All right. Now, if I was preaching to you, And I was saying, the Son of Righteousness comes with healing in his wings. Can I get an amen? You all go.
Amen.
All right, we're in order now, right? Let's start playing on your emotions. Most of you don't know that Masonically, I already know that I'm going to take a sabbatical within a year or two to purge myself so I don't start believing what I'm saying myself.
Right. That's right.
And go to that same lodge with my ring and my fez on with them same Europeans and other people around this planet in other organizations, etc., go on them lodges right too, and plot on your life for the next 20 years, including your neighborhoods. What houses we going to tear down, how much finance we going to tell, and how many of y'all we going to kill. They call it cull, C-U-L-L. Huh? These same people that you be loving, thinking that they love you and love Jesus, plotting your death and the death of your children, and living off of you. Vampires, and you don't even know what vampires is because you think that it's some man with a bat. You don't know there's really human beings because you don't know spirituality. You think you know spirituality. These are spiritual vampires. And nine-tenths of them got some kind of religious title. Whether it's, I'm talking across the board, it's not just self-righteous. And
Come on,
know
Wolf.
it.
Come on.
And are partners in secret against your interests. And have everything to do with smothering your economics. Now, you got it? Book of Malachi? There's book. Can a sister, any mother, choose to read it? Demonstrate to your children. Book of Malachi.
I'll find it. I know where I'll find it.
Give it to her.
Malachi.
Now I want you to tell us the spelling of the Son of Righteousness. And I want to show you that a lot of people have this book and they're taught from this book, but I'm only showing this to your point that you really don't know this book. But it's not to disparage or to discredit. It is simply to expose you to things that I know you wouldn't notice because they're not to be told to you.
Didn't the city have 12 gates in New Jerusalem?
Why 12 gates?
Astrology.
Of course.
Yep.
12 tribes. Book of Malachi, read it. Third chapter.
Third. It's the fourth chapter. I think it's
Third,
verse.
fourth chapter.
The whole chapter?
Yes.
Okay. Malachi, chapter 4. For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, and all the proud, yes, all who do wickedly, will be stubble. And the day which is coming shall burn them up, says the Lord of hosts, that will leave them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in his wings, and you shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves. You shall trample the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day that I do this, says the Lord of hosts. Remember the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse.
Now spell the Son of Righteousness.
S-U-N, capital
Now,
S.
how many people will notice that? And would you notice that if I didn't point it out to you?
No, not
No.
Because you are, the average person in their mind is thinking S-O-N.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about this. The white corpuscles in your body, in your constitution, are equated and balanced with the sun. Anything that is out of order will burn up. You cannot be out of order for so long before nature kicks in the Medea genes, which will cause you to kill yourself. Which is why they must trick you into violating divine law,
Right.
so that it takes the karma off of them. Which is the issue of them playing with the devil scapegoat game, causing you to violate law willingly, bringing on divine karma, cause and effect, evil on yourself. Then you get mad at someone outside yourself, which increases its potency, which brings on cancer, high blood pressure, strokes,
Sugar diabetes.
and all things that harm human beings on earth. Meaning that not understanding that the word is God and that there's power in words. Words have vibrations. The culture is veiled in the language. All they need to do as sorcerers is give you certain language to bring curses on yourself, including black. Do you understand? Once you agree and you start confessing it out of your mouth, your vibrations go into the ethers. It comes back to you off of Saturn and then creates mutations in the cells. In other words, that's how they mess with the gene pool without actually physically necessarily doing it. And that's the truth of both sorcery and spirituality and the knowledge of it. As an example, for instance, like an issue of counter sorcery, because it's all sorcery. That's why he took out the 7 books of Moses out the Heliotex, because it's actually dealing with these arts. It's real spirituality, not spookisms.
I read that book.
Yes, and it still don't tell. It gives you glyphs, but it really don't tell you everything. To understand it simply, just like say for instance when Jesus say turn the other cheek, that's actually dealing with the law of reflection. Like say for instance, like if somebody wishes you evil, you picture in your own mind in front of the pineal gland, that's over the bridge of the nose, because there's a nerve that comes out of the thalamus that comes right over here, over the bridge of the nose of the pineal gland, comes right here to the bridge of the nose. And what you do, you put in your mind a mirror or water reflector there. And when someone wishes evil on you, or if you feel it, or if you feel those vibrations, because they can't enter your aura unless you open up and let them, so they can't rip your garment. But if you let them in, they can. But if you don't know better, you can. And religion has been used to get in people's road. Do you understand? That's why it's dangerous for you to really understand so many things and not be so sensitive when certain criticisms are made about religion. Because you don't know that the sorcery, as it is, not as it was. Right? And so with that reflection, to turn the other cheek is really flip the mirror. And what happens, it magnifies those thoughts, because thoughts are real, back to its mother. Do you understand? In other words, you just bless them back. And then, but then you're absent of causing harm. See, because if you think harm or think things evil, it will come back to you. Do you understand? And see, that's why you don't think evil thoughts. And so a Muslim, you know, whose mouth tones your thoughts, you don't design them to hurt other people. Does not mean that you make yourself absent of defense, but you also need to know scientifically how to defend yourself. And so the other deal is, when you begin to understand certain truths in nature, your reflective change in how you think about things, and it changes actually the atmosphere. This is part of what's happening with the societies in Earth today. They're being upset because people are more awake, unconscious to themselves, because these things operate in nature. Their reflectors are coming on, or their pineal gland is awakening, or it's called the seat of David, or the third eye. So they will be, without their knowledge, becoming more psychic, more sensitive to that which is already theirs. It's not something that somebody needs to introduce to them. You know, and so what happens is they become baptized or washed in the water of Aquarian Uranus spirit. And so Uranus is purging all falsehood in all institutions on the planet, part of the immune system. And the sun, just like the white corpuscles, is burning them up. Has nothing to do with what you want. It's whether or not you're aware of what's going on in actuality in nature as opposed to what you believe. Well, you don't need to believe in anything because you can't change this. The deal is we need to become conscious of how this universe operates and how ancient civilization was founded on the stars. And we need to understand that the sun, the moon, and stars are left for signs for you. Because that is what it is. And it operates, it has nothing to do with what you believe or what you don't believe. And all principles of concepts of God came from them. God is a modern term. And it's generic. Neither positive or negative. Satan is God. Dirt's God. Pig sandwich is God. So. But you must understand that without emotions. And understand it's a designated status. Anything that's worship, adoration, or praise. So when somebody comes to you tomorrow, God said it, and he's broke. Wait a minute, let me get myself together. And roof's always leaking. And you go for that. They're not lying to you, because they're God too. All of you guys. See, but when you understand these things, then you're no longer smoked by them. Then you don't need these crutches. Then you become free. and you start recognizing your connection to everything on the planet, then you love for love's sake. You don't, it's no purpose for reward, but it changes the atmosphere. And when you want something, don't want anything. Want it for someone else. That's how it works. But they're not going to tell you that because they can't keep the confusion going on. And then the middleman is no longer necessary. Then you find out they're demons. Pretending they have the light and they're actually angels of the dark.
So when Jesus says, you need no middleman
Is exactly
to intercede.
Meaning that, how is it that you don't need a middleman? All right, we come in here, this is a business, right? We come in, we walk in, and it's pleasant outside, a little chilly for a minute earlier. Then you close the door, right? Turn on the juice, etc. Now wind comes along, a couple days ago we had all this wind, blows the door down. So I say, brother man, carpenter, go fix the door. And you say, yeah, brother, I got this, man. Do you believe? I said, yeah, we're gonna fix the door again. Now next week we still there, give me a sandwich. Anything else left in the refrigerator? Hold on, brother. Because one day, we're gonna fix this door. Baby getting cold and everything else like that. Because if you're a carpenter, there's universal principles that apply all over the planet. You either fix the door or you're not. Now, if next week I still think you're a carpenter and you ain't fixed the door, I'm the fool. And you're the con man.
That's right.
However, most people are in that position when it comes to people that keep on claiming to represent God and the prophets. That which is true works. That which does not, doesn't. It's not personal.
You said something else too. You said something about the tongue. To speak evil to someone or about someone, or even think evil about someone. The karma, how it's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
That's just universal law.
This is, yes, and that's true. See, but the art of, don't say a good sorcerer,
White magic.
the art of a low-line sorcerer, someone who really understands the art, is to get you to violate the law. So they must be an arch deceiver. A real art sorcerer, negative, because sorcery is not negative. Sorcery is just simply a knowledge of natural law. Will concentrate on the cultural science of the mind to get you to violate divine laws. That is usually assumed that you don't know. And 9 times out of 10, if you have a belief system, you're an easy victim. In other words, it's easier to use sorcery on someone who's a believer of any type than it is a person, even a person who's an atheist. Because usually a person who's an atheist is more honest. Most people who are believers are hypocrites who think that they're honest. No, I'm being honest. You must understand, we're talking about truth, we're not talking about how. Most people who think they're atheists aren't atheists in the sense that atheists are presented. They don't buy the BS, and out of frustration reject organized doctrines, but usually believe or have in their heart a knowledge of higher powers, but don't try to package it to sell.
So
Do you understand where I'm coming from? Now, a person, see, you must understand also how the mind works. There's principles of how the being works. So you look at the being from a principle of not just your emotions, but look at the being, how does this being function? Just like how's electricity function? You understand anode, cathode principles, fluctuation resistors, transistors, etc., voltage, wattage, speed, volume, things like that. How operate currency. And so you look at how this body functions. And so you understand also how the brain resets on its physical level and on its actual level. So you understand that when the being is introduced or one of the senses are activated, sensory nerves, whether it's any of the seeings, because sense of touch, taste, smell, hearing, all of them are forms of seeing. And so you know that, so you don't believe that, you know that. Those who know that they're all forms of seeing, and they're all electrical, all right? And they all deal with vibration, rates of vibration. So when you know that, you don't get caught up in how somebody feels about it. You know how the being functions. So you know from a basic function on how the being resets and cuts grooves in the brain for things that are stored and things that are dismissed generally. So you have, say on a layman's term, you have belief, you deal with triplicity, so always triune principle. Belief, faith, and fruition. Now, on a scientific level, that means introduction, exercise, and blending, or becoming what you know. So belief is like, I just know there's this thing. I believe that's there, right? Oh, I got faith that it's there, right? Now, when I study this, what it's structured of, how it's constructed, when I break it down logistically and understand its function, what it's made of, etc., then I and it are one. Now I know. I don't need belief. Do you understand? However, somebody who believes can be fooled, can be gamed. They're easily conned because they don't deal with facts. Until you come to fruition, becoming what you know, you're a believer, it'll change every 2 years. All somebody comes to ring another bell. I believe God. You know, I believe I'm saved and everything. And then somebody comes ding 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 another bell. Oh, well, I've been born again. You know, ding ling ling. Oh, I'm really born this time.
Believe.
Oh, this time I really got it.
That's belief.
50 years, 59,000 years old, gray hair come down my feet. Do you understand? That's belief. You don't have to prove to trees, to birds, to living things, that there's a fundamental unity in all things. It's no debate. It is that it is. Do you understand? And they are part of it.
Yes, sir. So that exposed something to me. So we talk about this devil and talk about the sorcery and all that. So what we're saying, what you're saying is basically we are our own worst enemies for so much
We're
belief.
the devil.
For so much belief. So
We're Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. It is our lower self.
all right, these things that we create.
It is what, yes, we are creators and makers of our own condition. When we exercise our higher powers and come in tune with nature, God, nature's law, we see ourselves for what we are and dismiss it.
And become one with the one.
It's exactly correct.
But every time
It is locked in the area that we call free will. In the area of free will, it is the power to create and the power to destroy. Therefore, we are gods, and we have the power to create and power to destroy. Therefore, we are responsible for our actions.
But if you don't know,
No,
and
if
you start
you
creating.
don't believe, you don't know. If you believe, see, because the will is the guidepost. It is like this. It is sort of like, let's look in this culture. Let's look like some of the conflicts, social conflicts that are taking place in the world. How, say, in religious order, people justify, say, women walking 20 feet behind them and all this kind of crap. And women can't teach on the pulpit, or they can't teach God's word because they have a period, and all this stuff like that. And they believe that. Not that someone practices that, but if the woman believes that, then her power suppresses her, because that's not supported in nature.
so her belief causes her to be her own devil, her own worst enemy.
That's it.
And so it's not on the other person that told him, but
It's
it's on her
deception.
for accepting it.
All right. So he says, bite the apple, and you bite it. Don't mean the apple's wrong. Do you?
I heard you say so.
The power of suggestion.
I would suggest.
Because see, the issue you talking about the apple, but the point is the sorcery is operating with the will. But you must also remember, like even like say in the book, in the Heliotech, when the book opens up with the tree of knowledge, and people say, "Well, man, he's a bad God because he taught the people the tree and knowledge of life and all that stuff and life and death, and he's a demon, and he's competing in God's area, and that's really not nice. He's the devil." But he used to be God's right hand man guy. Then at the end of the book, they never pay attention that those who keep the law, Jesus opened up the gates of the city and give them access to the tree of life. Open the tree and close the tree.
The same tree.
No, people don't recognize the source. They don't know it's sorcery. It's not negative. Let me put it this way. By people not knowing the truth of the principles upon which civilization is founded upon, mathematics, astrology, cosmology, they build their concepts of thoughts, how things operate, on beliefs that change by the day, according to who rings the bell. Therefore, they got a ring in their nose. They're not self-guided.
So when they call them Negroes, blacks, and colored,
and as soon as they accept it, it's deception.
As soon as they accept it, they actually become the undesirables.
Look in the dictionary. Look in Oxford's dictionary. Most professors will use Oxford's dictionary, unabridged. And of course, if you're going to study, you're going to use an unabridged dictionary anyway. What does it say that the word black means? Outside of the other members of society, evil, wicked, sullen, cursed, foreboding, absent of all moral light or goodness.
So to convince the people to call themselves that,
they curse themselves.
So the people cursing themselves.
Let's put it this way. Look, our baby there. As soon as he goes to school, we're going to tell him, we know there are 8 parts of speech, but we'll start him off in the 3rd grade with 2 of the main parts. That would be proper nouns, proper nouns, and adjectives, for the most part, to introduce him to the structure, grammatical structure. All right, now, when you go into a dictionary, even when they have pocket dictionaries for children, you'll go into a dictionary, and when you look at a word, the first thing you'll do etymologically, it will give you the part of speech it is in the brackets. So when you look up black, it'll tell you what? Adjective, am I correct? So now, what do they tell a child? And remember, we grown, right? We ain't boys and girls. We're grown, right? So a child, in 3rd grade, tell them that a noun, proper noun specifically, is a name that identifies or is applied to what? A person, place, thing, or idea. Am I correct?
Yes.
Black's an adjective. Do we need to say more?
Don't apply.
But yet, if people take it as an identity, so they take an adjective, and the people agree, contrary to the word and the language, knowing that the word is God. They always foam at the mouth, do push cards, and we tell everybody that all the time. Just came out their mouth, and it goes into those ethers.
So
and they say, I'm black, and I'm proud. They set that into the ethers, and it comes back, and they become that.
Sullen,
I noticed before
evil.
you mentioned black and white.
Yeah, now that's how they hide it, but that's how, now back to the sorcery. This is the sorcery, and you must understand this. Now in the dictionary, they'll have black, read this because I don't have my reading glasses, got my old eyes. Now, anyone who wants to read this? Black. Now, I'm going to show you how the sorcery works. Now, they know that the word is God. And they don't play with this because they ain't ruling for nothing. And they ain't more powerful than you. They're ruling with knowledge. Do you understand? All right, now, black's an adjective. Now, this is the sorcery. This is how they protect themselves. Beneath it, they'll have black or more. You know the compound word? You learned that in English and in the structure, don't you? What is a compound word?
2 words joined together to form
2 or
another
more.
word.
Black or more is right underneath of it, isn't it? Now read black or more.
Dark-skinned person, a Negro.
All right. So It breaks it down, the compound word, part of it's an adjective and part's a noun, isn't it? What part of that word is an adjective? What part is a noun?
More.
Is the identity of these people in the dictionary, and they can read it? Is it hidden?
No.
Can they be charged before the world court for hiding these people's identity?
No, it's right in front of
The
us.
claim can be made, and it has been made. Can it stand at law?
Yes, ma'am.
It cannot, because they go to school,
It's right on the book.
and they got the books, and they can
They
read.
can read
And
it.
they
We told
put it
them.
out and they print them every day.
It is not hidden. Now, while an argument can be made,
Yes.
it can't stand up in law because it's not hidden. Y'all got a dictionary at home? Y'all got encyclopedias?
Read them.
You all know the parts of speech? You know the black's an adjective? I didn't need to tell you that. That's in the dictionary. Right underneath black and more. Breaks it down, shows you that black is an adjective, more is a what? Proper noun. Your identity is more. Nobody hit that. You didn't want it. Y'all want to be black. So even though I may have, so all I did was call. You followed.
So when the
You have responsibility, just like me.
So when the different nationalities hear us call ourselves black and different things, they look at us to say that
Sometimes they want to help, but we are so steeped in darkness that we're dangerous.
all right, very, all right.
Not only to ourselves, but others. For instance, Ross was telling us of an experience that she had earlier today. Can you share that with us, please, just for a minute?
What, the Pakistani
Yes.
Indians?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There were about 3 or 4 Pakistan Indian brothers that came into where I was at my sister's place, and somehow we started talking. In essence, the bottom line is he realized that they knew already who all of us are, that call ourselves Negro.
They know.
Yep.
And in the end, when we kicked it, they said, you know what? You're the first person that I've talked to that is one of, he knew not to call me African American.
No,
He knew that we're not Indians.
no,
He knows what we don't know. He says, you're the first person since we've been in this country that I've had this conversation with. Then he also knew that his faith, creed, way of life is related to Muslim.
That's right.
So when I gave him the letter, the George Washington's letter to Muhammad ibn Abdullah, to prove that they did not take this from the British, as they tell you, that the George Washington was getting, having to pay tributes to Ibn.
Right.
They took that, they took copies of that, and they felt good about that because they understood that. They also told me and understood that their grandparents taught them that the Moors of Spain came out of religion that was Muslim, which they will say Muslim, Islamic. They knew that, but they could never talk about that to any person in America, the brown skin, because we don't know who we are, and they're going to bring me some information back.
But we want to burn things down. We want to fight.
Yeah.
Remember, look at this even in our life, in our lifespan, in our time. Maybe some of the younger brothers and sisters don't recognize. You recognize, say 30 years ago, if you called us black, you had a fight.
That's right.
Right.
But that came down from generations before who had some little bit consciousness that they weren't black.
But they were that color.
No, that it was stealing your birthright, your dignity. That's what we saw. But before that, it was a recognition that they were stealing your birthright. Because they're stealing your nationality, because your birthright is within your nationality. And they had to do this over a period of generations until we didn't recognize its value. Then once we accepted it, it was done. Because that's also an oral contract, and it's enforceable. Then you got the spiritual aspect of it, because you're sending that into the ethers, and it brings that back. But the point of it is, how do they protect themselves? Because now they send you to schools, the same schools they locked you out of, and it's there. But one thing that they do not put it in your standard desk dictionaries. They put it only usually in your older ones or the unabridged dictionaries. But however, from a position of law and karmically, even though they're still responsible, they have saved themselves.
And we continue to curse ourselves.
It's
every time we
exactly
speak.
correct, and they're innocent.
And
They're
so-
guilty innocent. See, the deal with a I ain't saying a good sorcerer, a sorcerer who understands it, really understands it and looking for negative effect, is that they create a situation with the least amount of karma on themselves. They're never absent of it. They know that. They know inevitably it must come around because nature does it. Has nothing to do with what you believe or they believe, because they understand how this thing works. But they remember, you got to remember that the European sons could not be free white people. You must understand the history here. That's why things must be put in context. Europeans could never be free white people. They were bonds. Because remember, we had them as servants first. It's just that we don't know our history, and so we keep looking at the slave history as being us, not recognizing that we had the history held them to servitude first. And so while they may have stolen or rewritten some of the history and stolen our birthright, they're paying the price for altering the history because good comes with it and bad comes with it. So they got a baggage of a lot of stuff that really wasn't theirs. So when you're talking about that 375 years or 400 years of history of so-called slavery, what the Asiatics here don't know that most of them was theirs.
What some was whose?
Theirs, the Europeans. It wasn't yours. See, but the debt of that lie goes with them burying the history. And so now they're charged by the rest of the world with maintaining slavery for all these 400 years. But the real deal, part of it was theirs. Yes.
So when the Moors went to Spain in 711 and didn't get and come out in 1490s, sometime 1492. So that's like 800 years. The Moors actually ruled Spain and most of Europe.
Yes. See, we brought civilization to Europe, and the principles of civilization that the Europeans have and preserved in organizational structure is called masonry. Do you understand that? That's how you must recognize masonry organizationally. Contrary to whatever they won't tell you, or what they do, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you what it is. You understand? And that they must preserve it to rule. Meaning that even if someone rules negatively, they still must preserve the truth. Because they don't have you necessarily to deal with. They got Mother Nature to deal with. You can't mess with her. Because she doesn't recognize personal station. She'll kick your keisters. You understand what I'm saying? So you must be cognizant at all times of true law. So that's why if you study law, anyone who studies law and studies jurisprudence, you'll recognize, they don't usually teach it in law class necessarily. But if you study jurisprudence, they will tell you, jurisprudence is based on and adjacent and parallel natural laws.
Automatic.
Oh, yeah.
Can't change that.
Because they ain't crazy. It's like this. It seems like a contradiction, but it must be understood that even when people misrule or abuse rulership, like the world is being ruled by people who are heartless, in a sense, who are cold-blooded. However, you must not assume that because they're doing certain things that are contrary to things of interest in the human family, that they themselves don't know the truth. If you think that, you're sorely mistaken. They cannot rule without knowing the truth. Rulership on this planet cannot be maintained for any long period of time without a knowledge of truth. It cannot operate on beliefs. Beliefs are for the masses. Faith is for the masses. Knowledge is for the rulers and those who know God, if you want to put it that way. Do you understand? Yes. So you have belief, then faith. Remember, these are stages. These are degrees. This is called development. It's called ascension or graduation. And so you must ascend unto the higher that is in you. But in civilized society, it is done consciously in institutions. You're not left for you to figure this out by the time you're 75 years old and say, oh man, if I knew then what I knew now, that's not how it works. Civilized society, they teach you these things.
No.
So that you would know.
You can stay in line with them.
Now you understand the real truth of Shura, or what is called schools. And schools are based on a study of the womb. You put a seed in, cultivate it, and bring it out and make it a useful member of society. Room, school room, school room.
School room. And so, paper member of a member
Or
society.
university,
Universe.
universe, cosmos,
Yeah.
One verse.
collage, multiple collage, college information. Excuse me,
I'm gonna
family.
no, I'm gonna change the tape.
Nothing to do, whether you believe it or not, it's not even important. You can be as atheistic as you want to be. You can be Christian, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. That's why Duality put all those prophets on the nationality card so you wouldn't get caught in that trap.
Time for one more question.
Any more questions?
Well,
Islam Queen?
it's not a question, but that's part of our culture.
It's like we're multiple expressions of light on rays, just like if it comes from the sun, and at the more distance, there's more brighter rays before you, but yet you're all the same in the same source, and you never really leave. This is like a vacuum. And there are different expressions of the same light at different vibratory rates, and you start, because there's consciousness is so vast, you start believing that you're independent of this thing. Or just like, say for instance, if you're a diver, and someone puts a suit on you, and you start examining the water, and the suit is advanced, and you stay down there for a period of time, and then you start getting convinced that you're locked. That's what
You're supposed to be at.
it's about, and you forget that this is a suit. So your concept of how you view yourself will change to a different vibratory rate, and you'll be scared to get rid of the suit when the suit is only serving the purpose for you to do this job. And once we, yes,
Only here to do this job.
it's exactly correct.
That
And this can be renewed.
all the time.
Yeah.
But like, so much science.
You know, and so that's why like the prophets will teach the people that death is no enemy to man, and there is no death.
Right.
Life is everlasting, but you don't understand life. You think that parts of the cycle of the life is the life. No different than when you plant a seed, you look at a seed and you look at a tree or you look at a fruit and you see the seed and you can't see a relationship.
Can't see it.
And yet the seed itself is no good unless it manifests for what its purpose is. But yet if the seed is planted, then the seed is going to shed its shell. And it's, I can't plant it because it's going to die. Yes and no. Its purpose is to flower out. Its purpose is not to stay the seed.
Or vibrate. Or
Yes, but because we're conscious, we're trying to stay at stages that are not our purpose.
It's like when Mama said it's time to go home, playtime is over with, we want to keep on playing.
Yes, so we're prepared for stages that are more advanced and problems we're gonna have to deal with on them levels too. Really?
That's it.
Stages of evolution.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
actually correct.
Yes,
Which
sir.
is also why, like the Crusaders would always start the argument of issue of evolution because they don't want you to look at it. And then they debate the issue of creation and evolution when actually they're both true. When you get caught up in either or, therefore you don't understand either. Do you understand? And see, and once you start looking at things scientifically and remove your emotions, stick your emotions in your back pocket, and the idol gods you also made, and love just because it's right to do, then nature starts speaking to you. But the door's always there. It's never different than that. It never has been different than that. We have willed ourselves away from Allah by our will.
Debase our own self and our.
In other words, it's a conscious separation, even if it's not deliberate. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so we've lost the consciousness of God, and so we keep creating idol gods and saying that, oh, that's the real one. And of course, as soon as it don't work, then we get rid of it and get another one. But we don't recognize that we're confessing that we're idol worshiping. We just don't recognize it because no one will challenge us and give us the mirror to look at ourselves. Because most time they know we'll get mad and want to burn stuff.
We like burning stuff.
So most people won't give you your God back to you because if you open the closet, all these idol gods will fall out.
I want to say this. So right now it would be kind of dangerous for the Europeans to tell these people, these Asiatics, that they home and this is your land and we actually. That's kind of scary.
He is caught two ways. This is where he's caught. Because this is, remember, back to the principles. The economics exist because you exist. Economics has no value without you having a value or knowledge of the control of it and its use. Meaning that, like this, if Raheem is holding me in servitude, right? Say you hold me in servitude, and I gotta go back to Jersey. You gotta go back to Jersey every Thursday and transfer some funds to Abdullah for some grain, and he's sending somebody down. He's coming down here every Friday, transferring some funds because you're sending cotton or some other substance because it's necessary in civilization. Because I have products you don't have, you have products I don't have, services, etc., etc. Meanwhile, we're always having the potential of those who are held in bondage to rebel on multiple levels, because you cannot hold someone down without being near them. You can't hold them down, they're far away. So you've got to be involved. So to agree, a slave holder is also a slave. But he must never let the slave know that. You understand? Now this is the deal. So if Raheem say, well, look, Taj, man, you're free now. You gonna work now, I'm gonna give you a job. Now I'm gonna give you $5 a week. Now you go pay Abdullah for the grain. Now all I'm doing is transferring the funds that he was transferring anyway. Now I'm a vehicle to transfer the funds and I think I got a job. I don't recognize that I'm still not free.
You're not free.
The deal, before he used to have to transfer and have to watch me. Or pay somebody to guard me. Now, I ain't trying to run nowhere because I got a job.
Yourself now.
I don't know, I don't even have money. All the money's on reserve. I don't know that because I think this is money. But I got God and I'm saved, so I know nobody fooling me. No, I'm serious. This is the actual political state that we're actually in today. Therefore, it is vitally important that the Illuminati, that is those who illuminate, do not allow Negroes, blacks, and colors to handle, possess, or control the money. The best way to do that is to teach them that something is money that is not. Right? These are representatives. I apologize, I don't have gold and silver coins on me, but do understand, say, all right, this is silver. Say this is a coin, right? That's the money. And understand that, remember this law. This is law. No debt can be satisfied without gold or silver coin. Do you understand? That's law.
It's law.
Government operates on that. Do you understand? All right.
Why?
Now,
Why do they
so-
operate on that? Why?
Huh?
Why?
It's just law.
For civilization to exist, you must have rules of law. For it to have any longevity, those rules of law must be in harmony with nature's law and nature's God. Or, translated, Allah. Allah is not a personality. Allah is all universal law, collectively. Muslim is not one who submits to the will of Allah in the context that's been presented to you. Europeans are Muslims. Same as a fetus. You exist, you got a body, muscles, and tissues, you're a Muslim. You get the point? Huh? It ain't spooky. And it don't qualify you or disqualify you. You get the point? So when you begin to understand the truth of things, people can't come and say, oh, Allah's gonna get you if you don't believe. Give me $5. I'm getting another job. And this goes on forever, and they've been abusing this thing forever. Then you're not impressed, and I come in and say, you know, I'm Imam Baz Natzeldorf Bey. You gotta submit to me because only I know Allah. You don't know the Quran, you don't know the Bible, you don't know the Torah, you don't know the Waspi, you don't know the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, nothing. Because I'm the man. Because I was appointed by God to tell you what's up. When you know the truth, I'm unnecessary. And all my ego, all my badges, all my holy garb don't count for crap.
Ain't that the overseer?
You got it correct. You got it.
The overseer.
Yes. See, because Allah, the law, is no respecter of person or station. Do you understand that? The sun shines on the good. The sun shines on the good as well as the evil. Problem is, most of the masses don't know the truth. That's why they've been ruling you and screwing you and stealing your property and enslaving you and putting you on a guilt trip of what? Fear, guilt, and superstition. It got you running from the devil and you God. When you know the truth, the game is up for them. And we can get the world in order, our house in order, and our economics back. You understand?
What article?
Bring me back.
Yeah,
Let's not
bring me
quit.
back to her. What article in the Constitution is it that says that all debt should be paid by gold and silver?
Deal with Congress is given the authority
Yep.
to coin the money. You deal also with the Coinage Act, which deals with the specifics. That can also be found in your Congressional Globe. That is a specific newspaper that is dealt with only for all acts of Congress. They don't tell you about the Congressional Globe because that tells you the conversation speak. Meaning while we're dealing with legislation, etc., or branches of government or issues before the government, those are sort of like the minutes, the records. So if you go into the Congressional Globe, you would recognize, say, for instance, as an example, it would be curious to you why they met on a Saturday, April the 9th, 1864, and deal with the 20 sections of Article 13 of the Constitution, which is not exposed in the Constitution as you see it today with the two parts dealing with issues of slavery. Of course, it would also deal with the issues of them having the obligation to repatriate us back on the land.
Lincoln has said something.
Do you understand? Then it makes sense to you why they assassinated Lincoln.
Yes.
Then you'd understand a little bit more the Dred Scott case rather than going by the emotions. Then you'd understand issues on Bilbo in 1948 and other issues, statements made by congressmen, even congressmen admitting that we're Moors on the record, but it's not in the public. And committing that it is important that they keep us in the dark. As a matter of fact, it's specific. I can't remember exactly what it says. I think it's Congressman Barry. It says, it is vitally important that we never allow them to see the light. Of course, you know he's a Mason too.
That's why,
So you understand, now light is what you're being told.
a lot of them only we go 360 degrees, a lot of them go to 32 degrees, and water freezes at 32 degrees, that means death.
Yes. Now, of course, and 33 degrees, water starts to thaw. And they murdered Jesus at the age of 33. Right? And then the 3 of 3 is 9. 3 squared of itself. So it's giving you other science too, so you must understand what's really being said. Right? And then Jesus started his mission at the age of 12. It's 3. It's numerology. So keep in mind that you're being told some things, but you're being told other things.
180, 360,
360
and
is still
720
9.
equals 9.
360 is 9.
And the highest number there is 9 to the 9th power of 9.
And that's why when they bring somebody into the lodges, they will give them 3 candles, 3 lights, and they give them a heliotape open on an altar.
Well, can you share on Queen Monitora? You already told us before. Can you share on about money and Queen Monitora?
Oh, Queen Monitor. That also money is relative to Queen Monitor. All right, now Monitor, it's not so much herself. just like they'll make issue of Queen Dido. It's not so much herself as it's implying the representation of the womb, the power of the womb, the principle of women ruling roughly 46,000 years ago before they transferred government to the sun, and the maintenance of records here is over 46,000 years that are known before the transference of government over to male, and then they start killing off the concepts of the feminine nature of God, period, founded in nature, having nothing to do with your beliefs. The earth is a womb. The universe is a womb. There's no man on this planet that didn't come from a womb. How can a man mathematically be superior to his mother? It's impossible. Impossible.
So it makes you
And if you want to argue about the chicken or the egg, they're both female because no male egg exists in nature. So
That's
what
right.
are you discussing? You know, so you must understand the truth. And if you're going to deal with the truth, if you're going to be dealing with the truth, you want to talk about, you know, I love Allah. You know, in my heart, you're full of crap. We're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. You know, we don't want the truth because the truth destroys the institutions. Well, Jesus come to turn those institutions over, and them institutions is coming down. I don't care what you do to try to hold them up. They're coming down. It's over. And guess what? It can't be saved. And he didn't come to bring no peace. He came with a sword.
That's right.
And all this crap is coming down. The deal is, what we need to understand is not the statement, but you need the logistics of functionally what specifically and actually is going to take place, named, described, so you can recognize it. Not belief. I want you to believe nothing. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. And you're going to know what's going to happen specifically, because you already know, but you need to go back to your cellular memory. But you can only do it if your heart is pure to the love of humanity and the love of your mothers and fathers, because that's what actually has blocked your minds. That's me. I'm not, when I say you, I'm talking plurally. Do you understand? I'm just having to be running my mouth. I'm not excluded. But you need to understand what has been functioning here. What has been functioning here? If you don't, you're going to be blind. Let me come. I got 10 minutes. Let me come to this real quick, because I want to make. This is important. I want to finish because I have very little time.
Quarters, monetary. You didn't-
Yes, I'm going to that.
All right.
All right. Now, is that sign of the sun?
Yes.
See that? That's called your master's seal. Do you understand that?
All right.
All right. You see this? In this house, this is called also a mansion. And in that mansion is broken down, and each one of these gates, these are 4 gates, each one of these gates, these lines, and these are broken down again into 3s. Are you following me?
Yes.
Yes, agreed.
This is what your clock is designed off of, just in case you didn't know.
Yep.
All right?
Right in your face.
These,
See
each
it
one of
every
these
day.
in between are called deaconess.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get the word deacons in the
In the
church,
church.
in case they ain't going to tell you the truth. These 4 gates are called your cardinal points. That's where you get the word cardinal in the church, in case you didn't know.
Mm-hmm. On the
All
pole.
right? Now, every first deacon in every house is the major helper of the cardinal, or the next sign. Do you understand?
All right.
Which is your bishop.
Come
Do
on.
you understand? Are we clear?
And they not practicing
Are you free?
Example.
In the mind. Don't be a slave to these people no more.
Example. First deacon of every house is. Just give me examples. So I picture that.
Like the helper. Like, say, for instance, you got 3, like in every house you got 3 deacons.
Right.
And you know they're broken down in 10s. 10 degrees.
Okay.
All right? Every first, whatever the name of the next house is, or the next sign,
Okay.
that first deacon is the major helper, or the major influence.
To get you to the
Because
next.
you got what points do you have? What are your signs? You got three basic categories. What? You got cardinal,
Fixed
What?
and mutable.
fixed,
Immutable.
mutable.
All right.
That tells you right there. So I want, and then again with the cardinal. So we're talking about structure, how they structure organizations, how Masonic structures, all organizations, governments are structured, how all religious orders are structured. So I'm only throwing that at you. I'm not going deep in it, but I'm throwing it at you mainly because I know you have other information, but that's just to give you something to go on to begin to free yourself from the tyranny of these people who have been governing you, who've been playing these self-righteous games and ruling you and taking your lunch money. Get rid of them.
That's right.
All right. Now, but the point of let's go point. Now, remember this. Now, the moon, the alchemy for the moon is what?
Silver.
So that's moon, right?
For the coin.
And the sun.
Gold.
Gold.
All right. Now, how many quarters to the moon?
4.
To the whole. Now you understand where you get your 4 quarters from? To the dollar, silver dollar,
Yeah.
right in your face.
Yeah, the quarter.
They're quarter moons.
Whole moon, half moon, yeah.
You're weighing the whole deal. How this thing functions. Are we clear?
Clear.
Same thing with the gold, the sun. For me to be honorable with you, if I can't work for you right now for what we trade, I must give you gold or silver to represent that honor. Anything outside of that is a fraud. So I'm going through this real quick. So they give you a check. Say that's a check, right? Right? And then they give you what they're calling a reserve
No.
note, right? Then they call it a dollar, right? Which it is not, right? Right? So you use this check or even a draft, right?
To get the note.
To get a check or to get a dollar, and you think that you've arrived. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So that's the object of your search, isn't it? So you cash this to get that, don't you? What they lied is that all of these are checks. Because the only money is the gold and the silver.
So we never been paid then.
Okay.
And the debt has never been satisfied. So what they do, this is what the banks do, it's called discharge.
They just charge the debt.
However, the lien goes against all documents that you have.
Your house?
Goes against your house,
Birth certificate.
birth certificate, driver's license, marriage certificate, etc. This is why I always tell Moors this. Whenever you're transacting business with them, because you're forced to deal with that Federal Reserve note, you always do the UCCs. Not using the UCCs, use UCC 1-207, UCC 1-103, and you do it without prejudice. Or WP. Now, the reason you do that, because remember, and this is what they won't tell you about the UCCs. The UCC 1-207, 1-103, you don't know how any one of those laws now preserve your rights. No, let's look at this. What it really does, it takes you back into the door of the Constitution. That gets them off the hook at law, so you can take them to world court. Because any law that they make or that they operate under, they must allow you a gateway to get back to your sovereign rights or your unalienable rights, so that they can't be charged with a fraud. However, you don't have to take it, do you? See, so rather than trying to use the UCs to fight them, use this to get back to the Constitution, because that's where their oath is. However, when you do that, you better be in propria persona sui juris. Because now that contract is really bound. Because now you know. You see the danger? All right, so keep that in mind. Are there any questions?
Putting pursuant to UCC as a lawful term.
You
would
can even do
allow
that
you-
too.
Because to ignore your law would be to protect your right within the UCC code, since you're going to be stepping to them with your own constitution, flags and everything. You also would want to put down pursuant to, meaning
Pursuant to or
this
like.
is not my law. This is your law.
Yeah,
I'm
but
holding
see
you
that-
to that
Can
law.
I say this?
with
Can I say this with qualification? One of the things that we have to understand is that the Uniform Commercial Code was established by Moors.
true indeed.
It's not their law. The deal that, see, and I understand, and I'm not saying don't do that, because you already know the little nuance, and I understand where you're coming from. And I do agree with you for that to be used, but I want to be very clear. One of the things we must not fall into is believing that these things belong to them. They have traded places with you. They are in your seats. They are on your throne.
More or less.
Now, the deal is, and this is why I'm saying what I'm saying, because I've told Moors years and years and years, that's why over the years, while I've given many people the Uniform Commercial Codes, I would also give them the caveat, don't go using these to try to go claim the birthright, the birth certificate and all this stuff, because they're not going to give you that birth certificate. There is no clerk in any organized government on this planet that can, by law, any law, give to you any original document. So you're not going to go claim that birth certificate, i.e. the straw man. What you do is disclaim it.
Right. That's right.
Layer it. Because just like they created that, they can create another one. Because you get that, you still got a driver's license as an ID. That's not an identification card.
That's right.
That's a revenue raiser. Your ID can't be bought or sold. It don't have an expiration date on it. But people don't know that. So the deal is for us to collectively sue them in a class action for violating these principles and particularly violating the Constitution. But we won't object to that. We keep on going to whatever deal cards they deal with. They want to deal with the UCCs? Oh, we know how to get them. Yeah, you know how to get out there and get beat up. Hold him to his obligations. You understand? And so the UCC's, UCC 1-207, 103, is looking at it this way. Remember, they locked everyone out of the Constitution, but although they do it with everyone, remember they use institutions to still serve their corporate citizens. But they do it so that you don't complain. Well, they're doing it to everybody. So they lock you out of the Constitution with the War Powers Act, Trading with the Enemy Act, Gold Act, 33, etc., bank holiday, you know the whole game. So that lets you back in. But then you again, and this is where a lot of people mess up. They get the Uniform Commercial Codes and are absent of the knowledge where law is derived, which is from the birthright. Back to the issue of why it's important to nationalize. For all this to mean anything, if you're not national, you don't have no law. So understand that, all right? So if this gets you back to the Constitution, you're part of that Constitution because your forefathers helped found it. And the Europeans were subordinate in the structure. That's what you must understand. They were not the major party. We were.
It even reads like that in the preamble.
Of
It's
course.
in the preamble.
But
yeah.
I'm saying to you, by them concentrating on blocking out or trying to write out Moorish history, most of the Asiatics here keep thinking that that's the Pilgrims thing.
Right.
And Europeans who are running from England for freedom, etc., and they associate that Constitution with Tom Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams. They don't know that they were ministers plenipotentiary with the Moors and were assigned plenary powers to represent the United States while the Moors were drafting the Treaty of Peace and Friendship before the adoption of that Constitution. They don't recognize that the Article 6 of the Constitution say all debts and contracts engaged in before this adoption of this Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. And so by them not recognizing their Moorish nationality, they can't use any law to preclude any claims that they have. So you see where I'm coming from? With your Moorish nationality, you can preclude any claims that they got, even the Constitution. You even supersede the Constitution.
The treaty.
At will. But you can only do it with your plebiscite. But your plebiscite can only exist with your nationality, because that's the only thing superior to a vote. It is a higher octave of a vote. But a plebiscite doesn't exist here, because the Moors won't stand up. Back to the issue of unity. The necessity of it, but you need to understand why it's necessary. Not because, oh man, that's a good idea, because there's a brother, he's talking about unity for all. Bull. I'm talking about your best economic and political interest. and the future of your children, and explaining to you why and how. And I suggest you study carefully what I'm telling you and figure out what you don't understand to let it make sense to you and do something with it. Don't believe what I say, put it to the test. Challenge it around the world. Are we clear? Any other questions?
You said Article 6 of the Constitution?
Article 6 of the Constitution. But again, just like you see a lot of people will talk trash, right? And never read the Constitution.
Right. That's right.
And the Constitution is supreme law of the land. And all officers of the courts, and all judges of every state, and all the legislature, the judicial branch, etc., are bound by that Constitution. What makes you think you're going to bind them by the UCCs? You understand where I'm coming from? That's why they encourage us to do it, so we can get lost in it.
Because they're not bonded.
Because you're agreeing to transfer your rights, which are sovereign and unalienable, into commercial activity under a straw man by claiming to be a board, a member of the board of governors, delegating that straw man and claiming to be then or having a rightful claim to reap a benefit from it, though you may never do. But just by you doing it, that's the same inference as intent. Therefore, it's a criminal act. You understand what I'm saying? Because you're agreeing to the fraud that you should be contending or contesting. Because now you agree to be a beneficial party to it. That's why I say you don't claim the birth certificate, dismiss it.
That's my question. How do you disclaim? What is there a specific
You know how a disclaimer?
process?
The principle of a disclaimer.
Right.
So read in your law books, disclaimer.
Okay.
Disclaimer as opposed to rescission. Now a lot of people who figure this out will say, well, I'm gonna make a rescission.
Right.
Well, you don't need to make a rescission because you wasn't a part of the structure at all.
Right. Right.
Because that implies that you're a party to the matter. Therefore, you have an obligation to the fraud also, taking it off his back. You see? So if you disclaim, because anybody can make an artifice and then claim you being a party to it, and then you don't object, and then they use it as an issue of lien.
So
Which is basically what they're doing. So they made a contract, made you a party to it, you don't object, and they're operating with it as you have an obligation. When what you should do is disclaim being a party to it, and disclaim them having any power or authority over yourself, your person, or your matters, etc., 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 so they can make all documents they want to.
Right.
But you must do these documents on the public record. Back to the political forum that Noble Drew Ali set up, and also why the traders came into the movement to neutralize the national side of this movement. Do you understand? In the 20s.
Question. Can you be a sovereign and still write Smith, Wilson, Jackson, Thompson, and Jones and profess being a sovereign with your tongue?
Let me say this, and I'm going to qualify that. First, no. First, no. But again, when I say qualifying sovereign, say more, can you claim your unalienable rights? That would be preferred than sovereign. Because sovereign is another status of the same thing with a different qualification. Because the sovereign represents that we've already organized, established our governments, our ministries, our Great Seal Order, and our army.
Yeah, we don't have that.
So therefore, you're not sovereign. However, you can claim connection to the sovereignty clicked.
Okay.
Just as the states have clicked sovereignty and won't take that. But if you don't understand that, our actions indicate that we keep waiving this. So better said to stand at law, say I am claiming my rights unalienable, which means they are not transferable in government. So it's not an argument. The court don't have an argument, do they? So if you're claiming your birthright and your Aboriginal Indigenous status, that precludes the corporate status that they may put or hide under inhabitant, resident, and any other trickery, zip code, whatever trickery they may do, it's foregone. But it must become a part of our cultural practice. And we must show that relativity amongst ourselves and in our dealings with the nations of the earth. Just like Raleigh said, come and take your places amongst the affairs of men. But you do it, but you got to do it with the knowledge. And I'm suggesting that. You understand where I'm coming from with that?
Can you, now, since you've been talking and stuff, and, but, our rightful position and stuff, something just keep going back.
In
in
pro
back of my
precisely
head.
yours.
No, something, a bell keep going up my head, that the real meaning of the name Bay, land governor.
Bay means governor. However, you also understand Bay also applies to the immune system. It's spiritual too. So is El. El is short for Elam.
Elohim?
Yes. And Elam is plural, it's not singular.
That's 7 miles long.
Oh, of course. And Elam is actually your 7 ruling planets. That's your circle 7.
Yeah.
You know, and so the point of it is for you, us, to understand these things as a foregone conclusion, to understand how those who are operating against us are already thinking. It is not to dismiss anything that you have or any thoughts that you may have or convert anything. It's simply if you're going to play chess with this man, you better know where he's at. I mean, you know, you have to give him respect for being a good sorcerer. And don't disrespect him for that, because he wasn't playing. And he ain't playing. And remember, the greatest trick to the sorcery that the European has done is that he has put the defense of the corruption in the victim. I mean, the victims defend the system. We do. And so you must understand how to undo it.
Yeah, I got another question about the disclaimer. Preparing the disclaimer, I want to just, I'm trying to find a way to just.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to mail you this week an example of a disclaimer. Can you share it with everyone? So
Yeah.
I'm going to mail down an example of a disclaimer.
Okay.
And remember, it's the principle of the
Right.
nature of it.
Right.
But most of all, understand, for anyone who may not understand, like, because a lot of people will mix the two words rescission of signature
Right.
and a disclaimer. A rescission of signature establishes, even if you didn't, that you signed this thing, which made you a prior party. Now, therefore, for it to be valid for you to disclaim, then you would have to have a court hearing to verify whether the other party agreed that you could just step out of this contract because you was a party to. You can't just do it. You got to argue this case.
Right.
He has a right to argue his part in this agreement. That you're disclaiming, that you're rescission,
Right.
that you make you're making a rescission of your signature to.
Disclaimer.
Because to rescind is to take back.
Right.
All right. So that means take back the seal, because the seal makes it law. Because the law starts with yourself.
Right.
All right. So now, if you rescind your signature to a birth certificate or something like that, the fact is you never signed it.
Right. That's right.
You just established a lie. Challengeable.
Very challenging.
And they can hold you to that. So you disclaim it. You disclaim it as any instrument of bond, any instruments of transfer of any debt, or implied contract with the commission of any offer or burden or obligation in that nature. And as you understand, because then you'd understand the principle of the nature of contract. Because the nature of contract, number one, these components must be there. We're not going to go through all the nature.
Right.
It must be mutual. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
It must be not vague. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
It must have clear substance. Am I correct? Then it has to have signature of all the parties who claim to be a party to the matter.
Right.
And you know the issue of argument when you're talking contracts and these birth certificates, et cetera, and they're making claims of claiming a straw man. They're talking about being a party to the matter. Am I correct?
Yeah, okay.
When actually the issue you should be arguing is not being a party to the fraud in the
Right.
first place. Therefore,
Right.
the document is invalid.
Right.
Other than as a point of information. And because it's in nom de guerre written, which is all capital letters, which automatically makes it a corporate issue anyway, and not a natural person anyway, it doesn't apply unless you waive your right.
Right. And that would
So it's not really dealing with a natural person anyway. And you also know that in law, person means both corporate and
Right.
natural. So therefore, specify your natural person status, and you also know that you can't be a natural person if you're Negro, Black, and Colored either.
That's right.
Because that's corporate.
Right.
So when you,
And personality means mask.
yes, it does. It does. And so this is, again, where I'm stressing that it's important that we begin to understand the cultures and the language. But we need to be told what it is that they're using, not just saying, well, the cultures and language, oh, that's deep. No, it's not deep. Take off your snowshoes. You know what I mean? Just look at specifically what they're doing by principle, and then you can understand the rest of it. It's not family.
Now you're talking about disclaiming. That same applies to all the adhesion contracts, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So you have everything in place, you recorded your documents, you're asserting your inalienable rights, and they're still holding you to.
And they will.
All of that. They don't want to let you go.
Now, what is the other weakness, and what is the other issue Raheem was talking about when he put on this board? Economics and unity. What is the unity? What did Noble Drew Ali say when he came here? He knew he had opposition amongst the Moors. He brought a little brother and a little sister before the Moors, and he raised their hands and said, I do declare that you are a nation. He said, I come for the young yet unborn, the old can go if they want to. What is the weakness? What is the caveat that you just described? And it does exist, and I recognize it. Is that we keep talking nationhood and going out here as islands.
Oh, that's a fact.
No, this is not a quick. Back to this. What are we talking about tonight? Economics and unity. What did I say, and what am I saying now? The necessity of it to make you understand why it was presented in the first place as a part of the movement. It's not something that we just invented right now. This was presented from day one. Our violating these laws and principles is the thing that has brought us to the negative that we're suffering. The remedy is already given. We won't use it. We keep on trying to get another package of law to beat this man up with when what we need was already given to us. We won't use it. So now this is the deal. The word nation, is that singular or is it plural?
Singular.
It is both.
Oh.
So how do we apply it?
What is unity?
Joining of two or more things, chemical things.
You ever see that grip that's on that Constitution, that divine Constitution? See that grip?
Right.
What did Drew Ali say? I'm going to repeat myself. Take your places among the affairs of men. Come and link yourselves back with the families of nations. What necessitates that to take place? That means when I leave here, and this is no new thing, when you all have your meetings, when you go home to your families, etc., you must start teaching the principles of what nation really is. Not that word being bandied about loosely. It is a political forum of conscious, constitutional connection. What allows you and me and she and he and he, the babies and all of us with our different personalities and character to have something in common in a political forum? It's called a constitution. It is a covenant that we all agree upon, that crosses barriers of land, that make us of like mind in harmony with nature's God and nature's law, and does not violate those principles. And we uphold those principles. And we command that all people in society uphold those principles. And we don't waive it. That constitutes political unity, coming back into the constitutional fold of government. Enforce it, and your question is answered. What am I doing? I'm a cheerleader.
I cannot enforce it as an individual.
Meaning that you can't make people do what they don't want to do. You can try to give them information to encourage them with reason, not with fear, guilt, or superstition, but with knowledge to let them understand what your reasoning is. Why do you make your argument? Point for point. Everything point that could be made, I'm not making at this time because there's not enough time in one conversation. But I try to hit on different things to share the reasoning why the position I hold. So that it becomes yours, not that you accept it because I said so. I'm unimportant. But when you recognize its value for what it is, it becomes yours whether I speak again or not. And you will begin to exercise that information. And you will share it with others. And when you understand it yourself, you will have the capacity to communicate it to someone else. If you don't understand the principles upon which it stands, you'll just be talking rhetoric and emotion, which does nobody any good. Because we are not believers. We are scientists. Do you understand? Does not condemn believers. But believers are grade school. We're in university now. You know, there's a point when you are studying to be yourself, but at some point you got to start being yourself.
That's right. That's right.
And you must recognize that that's a process. Respect that. We go to grade school. You say, Brother Taj, come on, let's go down here, and we're going to eat some breakfast. And they having thinking at school, and we going down to the grade school. I ain't going to no grade school. I don't disrespect the grade school because I don't go there no more. I recognize that's for our children. I ain't talking about whether we're arguing the curriculum that's there. I ain't talking that issue, but I'm just saying we recognize that there's place for children, but there's place for adults too. Belief is for boys and girls. Respect that. We're adults. We're men and women. Men and women in real civilized society are no longer believers. They're knowers. Do you understand? This is part of the keys of civilization that have been kept from us. So we have not known the responsibility in civilized order that there are stages of development in institutions in all civilized societies. Adults are no longer believers. They are at the state of fruition, or they're supposed to be. The institutions are to see that that takes place. So therefore, as little boys and girls, we're believers. When we become adolescents, we got faith. When we become adults, we put away our childish things because we don't need them no more. Now we can write. So I ain't going to throw the blocks away. I'm giving them to my babies. I don't condemn the blocks. But I also know the baby's not going to necessarily say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, P, Q, R. You know, you might have to correct them, but we're only training them so that they can communicate. And so we must understand the same thing. What is violating us right now as a body of people is that many of our people are still in the stage of believers and think it's correct because we've been groomed to that, not knowing that that's actually part of the sorcery of the servitude. But because we associated with the prophets, we think it's clean. But they're unclean hands. And very few people are challenging it because they don't have the courage to, because they want to be liked.
Ooh, come on.
And when you tell the truth, people don't necessarily like it.
That's right. They don't like it.
Do you understand? Oh, well, that's true.
What you talking about? This is the makeup you're talking about.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But the deal is, what the people don't know, if they don't come out of it, they're going to die. It's not safe there. They think it's safe. Because that's part of it too. Do you understand? This is why the Europeans have Executive Order 11490, King Alfred Plan. If we don't fix it, they're gonna. So you gotta look at this on an even broader scale. So if we don't fix this Negro problem, the world ain't waiting no more. Because they're gonna vaporize them. They're not even gonna deal with the ashes. You know it's more serious than we're saying. I know it is. But the deal is, we also know that Moors who have this information have not been representing it right to the people, and the people have not understood it for what it really is, because they think it's religion. Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't know it's their birthright salvation. It's their social, civic, civilization, and economic salvation and security. It's giving them the means by which to secure these things, if they would, if they will. Whosoever will, let them come. You can't make them honor their mothers and fathers if they don't want to, because it's by their own will that they're sealing their fate. But they don't know they're sealing their fate because they think they're doing something for God. That's the
right.
That's the paradox with this thing.
So I'm saying in the meantime, while we're trying to wake one another up and trying to unite.
This is what I suggested. Remember
we still
years
gotta
ago,
function.
when we met at the base of Ben Franklin Bridge, and Valera said, and I signed Valera the responsibility to have the printer do the Great Seal documents. And when I saw that I wasn't exactly clear on her intentions, I wouldn't give them to her. She got pissed. That's why, because I knew it was trouble in the wind. Because if you can't defend this spiritually, because this is a divine thing. See, a lot of people look at the documents, a lot of people don't necessarily mean harm. And a lot of people, because of anxiety, don't really understand spirituality. They think they do because they've been religious. But if you understand these things, you don't just play with it just because of people's anxiety or their need. We all have need. But you cannot give something to a person who has an impure heart, because they'll make it bad for other people. And they'll themselves end up robbing the people they talk about helping. But you've got to be able to see that before it takes place. That's what I saw. Do you understand? You was there in the room. That's why I wouldn't give the documents. I wasn't looking at present. I was looking on another plane. I was looking in the future. Do you understand? I was looking at her spirit. But at the same time, I recognized that she has a powerful and a good mind. I was hoping that her heart was clear. But I didn't see that. Of course. I'm telling you what my motivation was because you were sitting there. But I also knew it wasn't totally understood at the time. But that wasn't important. I had to, because the care is the people. But at the same time, I understood that if the spirit can't defend what is the knowledge behind what a brief represents, the brief is nothing. Because you know that man who's going to challenge you is a sorcerer. So why would you send your people before a sorcerer, and you just talking about, well, he's the judge and you're going to say this and that, this is going to work? Well, guess what? Well, yes and no. So therefore, that's why before I gave certain questions that I explained but didn't necessarily confirm that I actually had more questions that go with them, but I gave pertinent questions that I already knew that would tie the court up. Not because of what the person using it, because I already know what the judge is. But then, assuming if a person's honorable, then they're going to seek the knowledge and study those things which is necessary so they can defend these questions that they themselves have presented and understand why they got that nationality card in the first place. Meanwhile, you're trying to tell somebody that and they tell them, I ain't going to no temple. You see? Denying the very basis of the unity that is necessary for their own political salvation that they're asking for. Meaning that if you're not willing to clean up your own house, you can't clean his up. So what are you going to do, argue with somebody? And they know that they're highly educated, they know that they're intelligent, and you can't tell them nothing. So what you do, you let them go around the mulberry bush. Knowing they're going to come back. And the only reason they don't come back is because of their pride or their arrogance. Meanwhile, you got people out here to raise. That's your duty and responsibility. You are your brother's keeper. It's not a choice of yours. Because mom ain't going to let you have nothing if you don't go out there and get them. And you must go out there and get them sincerely and not with the intentions of grafting them or shearing them sheep as they graze. And you know the game because you've seen it. And I'm saying to you what I said years ago, I said right now, the reason why a lot of Moors having problems with documents is because they're not on a political forum, not because the documents are right. And the other deal is because they've transacted business on a commercial level with the functions of the documents when this cannot be sold. Because once you do, it loses its honor and integrity, the spirit, and is no longer the law. But is as commercial as the nom de guerre that the corporate states have produced. Therefore, you're not, you're another gangster competing with the Don from New York who's got a territory here. and then trying to talk the integrity of what the words are saying. It has no allegiance in the heart, therefore it has no allegiance to the law, because the law is divine. And when you talk religion, and even when you speak to him, your vibratory tone with which you speak to him will indicate also the level of what is the words that you have. And you can say the same thing somebody else says, and have a different rate with him. Then again, you've got to recognize that while he's at the gate, he also must maintain integrity for his niggers, and you must allow him to open the gate for you and walk out when he gives you the signal. What happens with some of us don't recognize the signal and want to keep arguing to him and argue right back into the jurisdiction. Then he gets pissed, because he ain't gonna let you free them niggers in that daggone courtroom. He mad anyway because you're running your mouth. Most times he'll clear the court. But the deal is, you should use every opportunity that you can to not free yourself when the Romans catch you, or when the Romans cast you into prison. But seek to free the one that's sitting at the back of the room so that the others in between might hear. Don't seek to get out of the belly of the whale. Seek to make him sick while you're there, knowing you want to get out. That's my answer to you. Don't worry about what he's doing right now. He's doing what he's doing right now because he's in death throes. He is not going to pack up and go home. That's why the economy must collapse. But it's not the economy, if you understand, which you already understand. But meanwhile, it is your duty and your responsibility, particularly those of you who know, to tell someone who does not know and explain to them in a way that they can understand it without. We know that the language must change. We know that. But we must find a way to communicate that they can relate to. Comparative things. And I know that it's difficult in some areas because we have to do so many checks and balances because this thing is so thorough. At the same time, we have to have patience with it. And we have to make the effort. And then look at the thing even now. You knew, look at Martin Luther King as an example. When he tried to Masonically reveal the Great Seal, he'd been better off if he just came out and told the truth instead of trying to preserve his good name. But he beat around the bush, revealed no secrets, but implied Masonically secret codes about the mountaintop, the Great Seal, etc., the inferior name and everything, so they knocked him off. What he should have just came out and told people about the Great Seal, and that they're part of his government, and they're not Negro, black, and colored, and forget his 33-degree Masonic oath and his preachership and all the rest of stuff, stop trying to save his name. So now what did he do? He took the knowledge to the grave with him. He's martyred by the people, and the people don't even know that he was talking Masonically. He's talking to the government, not to them. So he did good, but what good did it do? Then Il Malik, when he found out, he recognized the enemy was on both sides. So he didn't even try. You know, he recognized he had to be retaught. So they killed him and won't even call him Il Malik, will they? Still call him Malcolm X, don't they? So what happens if you all know and y'all won't tell? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it can be told. If you understand the thing, you can tell it to someone who doesn't understand it. You'll find a way because you know, because you're a doctor. Because you've traveled that way. You know what caused you the trap. You know what caused you the ill. So if you've walked that way and you've been injured, certainly if you have a heart, you don't want someone else to suffer that. And so you tell them a method to counter these Romans, wouldn't you? Now you do. And I'm saying to you, that's the remedy. But I say to you also, and this is with honest sincerity, the more we seek the personal remedy for myself, because I should or I can, the less we'll get.
That's right. That's right. In other words, where always said, love it not thyself, but for the good it may be of others.
In other words, really, Islam is service to humanity. It's not, whether I prayed 5 times, 7 times, kissed the wall, kissed the brick. All that's ritual.
Throw the stone.
It is in
Throw
the
the
heart.
stone, huh?
It is the hearts and minds of men. And seek to do for the child that is your child, that is someone else's, that is your child. And so be it. And in the end, it will all come right. However, the spirituality is the activation that takes place in the atmosphere by our efforts, not actually even our actual achievements. Spiritually, you know the power that's in the Constitution? People think that the Constitution itself, that the enforcement of the Constitution, therefore, being right law, makes the law right in proper jurisprudence. No. What it really is that there's keys of high-level sorcery in that Constitution, that when a person acts and tries to enforce it, it actually has nothing to do with the Constitution, it has to do with cells in their body. Constitution of their body that actually activates and starts healing the atmosphere. That they make the effort. And that's really the truth. And those who know that that's it. That's why they're scared of it. When you start enforcing that Constitution, that's just like bringing the sun out to a vampire. You'll so you wouldn't get caught in that trap.
Time for one more question.
Any more questions?
Well,
Islam Queen.
It's not a question, but that's part of our culture, using what we have
Yes.
and putting something on a floor like a cloth, bringing whatever you have, like you said.
Yes.
But you mentioned about negativity. And I think that people who are negative, they don't like themselves or their situation.
Yes.
If they can think of a negative thought to you.
And you're correct.
You know what I mean?
Well, let me qualify what I'm saying. And I know what I'm saying might make some people uncomfortable. But I already know that ritual don't make the man. Man makes ritual. Institutions don't make man. Man is already made, cannot be made again. Man is already born by his mother, his queen, his God.
First
Cannot
teacher
be
of
born
child.
again. Man can be reawakened or reconnected to his lost cellular memory given to him by his mother that contains all the memories of all his ancestors. And all rituals that we do are just like punching keys on a computer to remind you of a state of mind to bring you to something. But when you begin to understand yourself, you don't need rituals. It's not important. As a matter of fact, after a while, rituals blind you. And if there's anything that disrespects Allah or disrespects Mother Nature is when we get plastic with our rituals. And the rituals become the religions. But not the spirit of truth that's behind them and our love for humanity, which is sorely absent. Of course, our hypocrisy denies that. And we get caught up in the... Just gets that corner.
Oh, come on.
Just that corner. Wait, look, I hold it like this. How many minutes, brother? I got a hop 5 times. I'm against Bottledorf now. I'm a real one. You ain't. And this is what we have become. It's only a ritual. We must become spiritually what we have been claiming, or we're going to die. And that's really what I'm saying. So we can stop playing these games, shed all this artificiality, and love instead of hate. For real, and stop faking it. And recognize me going making the Hajj and marching around the Kaaba 7 times, don't make me a Muslim. I was born one.
That's right.
Don't make me love or not love Allah or the prophets. Do you understand? It is in the heart. Cannot be proven or touched by any man, nor any woman, nor any child. It can only be expressed what we do to each other. And what you do to the little ones, you do to all that is good. And if we understand those rules, all other laws hinge on it, and tack up all this other crap, take these houses down, and go feed your garbage to the squirrels out there, that we've been throwing down the tubes. You understand? Stop feeling arrogantly self-righteous. There's the greatest toxin that plagues humanity today is our selfish concepts of what we think we're doing for God and people in our religious rituals that have become toxic houses of poison. However, being the grand, high-polished hypocrites that we are, we will protect it. But since we will, Mother Nature is taking it out of our hands, and she's going to crash them all. And that's all I'm saying. But it's not disrespecting anyone's culture or rituals. But I'm saying in this day and time, the time has come for all of them to go. But I also recognize that everybody don't know that. But I'm not talking current, I'm talking in the future.
That's what the Aquarian age is about, right?
That's exactly correct. It is purging. And I understand, you know, the emotions, but guess what? Mother Nature don't recognize that. And we need to understand that and not take it personal. This is the baptism. You know Aquarius is baptismal.
Water.
Oh yeah. So the fish is gone. This is the age of I know. It's not the age of I believe. This is the new era time. And if we were in a harmony with our culture and our law, we would have recognized it. The problem of we not recognizing it is that we caught up in our rituals. The rituals have become our belief, our religion, our God. It has served nothing but made a few men rich and shed blood of innocent people around the planet. Islam family. I hope I addressed that to you, sister.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us how Leo come in accordance with the age of Aquarius?
I'll tell you exactly how. The things that you have faith in and that you have belief in will start collapsing around you, including your personal relationships, including your securities that you think you have and what you think is money, etc. It will collapse around you, and it'll do in your time. You don't have to wait. You will get yourself together or suffer the consequences of not getting yourself together. You will be given information with which to cast the evil off. However, if you don't listen, you will suffer the consequences in this cycle. You don't have to wait for the next cycle. That's how it's going to be done.
So that is
cut and dry.
That's the relation between the Leo and Aquarius?
Then he's saying Leo and Aquarius.
Well, Leo is opposite.
Right.
Exact, directly across the table. You know that, right? And if you look at the natures of their workings, they're expressions of the same thing on two different levels.
So
and one absolutely supports the other.
It's a mirror.
And I'll tell you this too. Whenever you read or chart yourself, always read your moon and your sun. Don't just read your sun. All the time. And if you're reading any chart of any masters that gives you your chart, always read both. Don't read one. Because what has a front has a back. And remember, while the sun may reflect your general character, the moon reflects your personality.
Right.
So look at it that way.
I think he's trying to look at how Aquarius and Leo, one's creating and one's knowing, how they're reflecting each other, how they're relating to each other right now, since they're both here.
And you can look at Leo in a sense as a mother. In that relationship, or feminine and masculine principle manifest or coalescing, or what you call spiritual sex. Or say, the son has come for his bride. You can look at it like that. And ain't nobody gonna stop it either. The deal is, and what I'm saying to you in another level, is I like to try to make it simple, rather than try to describe the aspects which most people don't understand necessarily unless they are charters or astrologers, things that they can deal in every day, just like the seasons, is that understanding that the erratic nature of Uranus, the justice principle of Jupiter, and of course the Aquarian age itself. Aquarian age is baptismal, is cleaning, is the water bearer. Not only representing wisdom, but representing baptism, the washing. So concepts that people have or had of what things were, are, or should be will be before their face challenged on a constant basis. They will not be given comfort. But they need to know why, as opposed to getting upset about it. See, it's sort of like, if you know a storm is coming, you can somewhat prepare for the storm. You can't stop the storm, but you can prepare for the storm. What occurs with most people is that by people being steeped in religious belief, it has locked them out of connections with God, the supreme God. Therefore, the signs in nature, where nature is always a messenger that tells you everything before it comes. So nature does not rain on you without warning you. Nature does not give you a cold winter without showing you it in the leaves. You understand? The herbs and the trees do not deny you their pertinency unless you do not let her know before you take her branches. These are rules. And so because we are out of order because of our beliefs that we've adopted that have nothing to do with the prophets, nothing to do with divine nature, and have been lying, we are suffering the consequences. In other words, we're going to be forced back into the law since we won't do it willingly. What we don't understand, nature will make us understand. She will beat the hell out of you. Mercifully. All right? So understand this. If you want to know how, look at your personal relationships. Number one, they will be unstable, particularly this time, more than ever. Marriage as an institution will die. Security in banks will die. Confidence in religious orders will crumble. Mental safety nets that people have taken as their belief systems by the day will prove to be pits of pus before their faces. Now, it is up to you who know to tell them the truth so they're not offended by it, so they can recognize it's coming, and to give them knowledge and information to take its place so that happiness is not a fleeting thing. If you don't tell them, it's going to be terrible out here because they're going to think it's something else. And they're going to try to be working against the Supreme God, thinking they're working for the Supreme God, wreak the wrath, and find themselves in a worse condition because they think that their beliefs are saving them, when their beliefs have actually been the tools of the demons. And so it is important for people to understand the sciences so that when these things come about, even if they don't accept it, when it's told, they will recognize it because their spirit will tell them, because the spirit man will wake up. The spirit man going to guide them anyway. They're going to get mad, but spirit man, once the spirit, because when you talk on the truth and the level of spiritual, you're talking to the spirit man anyway. And it has nothing to do with what that person thinks, because the soul is perfect even in the bosom of a fool. So it doesn't matter. And you know that, so it doesn't matter what they believe. It's not important for you to prove to them what they believe or what you believe. It's not important, because you're dealing with science. So it doesn't matter. They don't have to accept anything you say, because they're going to go out there and the spirit going to beat the hell out of them. It doesn't matter whether they believe you or not. But they'll have been foretold certain things that will manifest just like it is, and then they will accept it. Then they will start thinking again. And when they begin thinking again, they will find that they already knew and are capable of knowing much more. It's time for people to eat. Everybody want to eat?
We just ate. We full. We full.
Y'all full?
Yeah.
I don't know why he's going with these good messages. Time, people, happy. Sounds good to me, brother. All right, I'm going to say peace for a moment. And I trust that I did some good.
Keep your seat. No, keep your seat. Got some announcements.
I hope that I did some good. And if you have any questions in the future, or some questions that may arrive later on, if I'm not around, I'll post them with Brother Raheem, and I'll try to respond to them, or either respond in the paper, or just send some direct mail, etc.
Coming back next month.
Let's give a hand. Hold tight. Got some announcements. I want to thank everyone for coming to Know Thyself lecture series here at the gallery, More Ways on Market Street. This has been a tremendous evening here, and once again, I want to thank my brother Taj for coming. Let it be known that Know Thyself lecture series, Know Thyself videotapes, as well as DVDs and literature is here for you. We have the necessary tools that you can use to free yourself, from the Zodiac Constitution to the Divine Constitution to the Clock of Destinies 1 and 2, Moorish Paradigm, Civic Lessons, Moroccan Stars. All of that is here for you. And remember, these are the tools that you can use to free yourself. Secondly, I just want to give you briefly an overview so you'll know what we're doing here on a weekly basis. Fridays is social gathering where we come around and we eat and socialize. Saturdays is roundtables or a lecture series because we brought Brother Taj in. Sunday is Sovereignty League meetings 1 to 3, the first 3 Sundays of the month. Also on Mondays is open, Tuesdays is open for poetry, Tuesday night poetry. Wednesdays we have Sovereignty League meetings from 7 until 9, and Thursdays again we have poetry. So we want you to know that this is a house for you to come to. This is our thing. So this is a blessing, and I want, again, Brother Taj really shared some poignant things with us this evening, and this is to cherish and know that this will be available to you so you can show your family and friends, because remember, we have to help each other. We have to really help someone that we claim we love. How can we love our friends and don't tell them the truth about their nationality and their birthrights? How can we have a mate or a wife that we won't tell the truth about their nationality and their birthright? We have to share this. And so these are the keys that Taj was talking about. So once again, thank you for coming. There's food available. Sister Born Earth is here. She has things here that if you could patronize her, anything that you could do to help in this great program of uplifting fallen humanity is a blessing. Thanks for coming. Yeah, so we got an announcement. We have a fair coming up.
Yes, I'd like to make an announcement though. Islam.
Islam.
Brother Elijah Israel Bey. I represent the Temple of the Ancient Ones, which is a small study group of Moors in Newark, New Jersey. And we put lectures together also. And so I have the flyers here. It's next week. Also, I have some raffle tickets for a winter solstice celebration, December 20th. And Hakeem H.Y. Bey will be doing that lecture. So we're raising funds by, selling these raffle tickets. You get 3 prizes. DVD, VCR combo is the first prize, $100 cash prize second, and a full body massage by Sister Ma, one of our young Moorish queens who's a certified massage therapist. So, that's what I wanted to share.
There's another announcement coming up in August 2004 in Atlanta, Mother's Calling. Sister Isis
July 15th through July 18th.
Thank you. July 15th through July 18th. We'll be announcing it in the upcoming months. We want a caravan, and we want to go to Atlanta and spend 3 or 4 days in Atlanta. That's going to be a beautiful thing, and Mother's Calling. So that's going to be something that we're going to be sharing with you. And remember, we'll have 1 or 2 lectures. We're going to bring Hakeem Bey back here. We're going to get others to come as well, and I'll be speaking on some Saturdays for lecture series. So thank you once again.
Wow.